There are universes where hope is a strategy, where freedom is an inalienable right, where the good guys win because they're good. The 41st millennium is not one of those universes. It is a place where hope is the first step on the road to disappointment, where freedom is heresy, and where the good died screaming 10,000 years ago. So when something that believes in hope, freedom, and goodness tears through the fabric of reality itself, well, that's when things get interesting. This is the story of what happens when an icon of heroism meets a galaxy that has forgotten what heroes look like. If you're ready to witness a collision between two of science fiction's most brutal universes, then join the faithful and subscribe, because in the grim darkness of the far future, even legends need allies to survive. The Emperor protects those who support the channel, and you'll want to be here for every moment of this impossible encounter. Now let me take you to Vulcanus Prime, a forge world on the eastern fringe, where the Imperium grinds out weapons for wars that will never end. The rift opened at 0347 hours, local time, in the ash-choked skies above Manufactorum District 7. It wasn't like the warp storms that occasionally plagued the sector. Those came with the usual warnings. Astropaths bleeding from their eyes, navigators screaming about things with too many mouths, the stench of unreality seeping through the veil. This was different. This was clean, almost surgical. A tear in space-time that burned with colors that had no name in Imperial Gothic or any other human tongue. The void shields over the Manufactorum district flickered, their machine spirits confused by energy readings that made no sense. Magos explorator Deltrian 7 would later describe it in his report to Mars as a dimensional incursion of non-warp origin, exhibiting technological rather than demonic signatures. The Inquisition would burn that report, but not before several copies made their way into archives that officially didn't exist. Something fell through the rift. Fell isn't quite the right word. It descended with purpose, with control, adjusting its trajectory with precision that would make a Space Marine Thunderhawk pilot jealous. It was metal, massive, roughly humanoid in shape, but wrong in ways that made servitors malfunction just looking at it. Sensor arrays across 3 districts registered it simultaneously. 18 meters tall, 47 metric tons, composed of alloys that shouldn't exist, and configured in ways that violated approximately 237 articles of the Mechanicus's sacred texts. The rift sealed behind it as cleanly as it had opened, leaving nothing but the fading afterimage of impossible geometries, and a single towering figure standing in the crater its landing had created in Processway Tertius. That figure stood slowly, servos and joints moving with a fluid grace that Imperial technology had never achieved. Its optics, because they had to be optics, even if they glowed with something warmer than machine spirits usually allowed, scanned the industrial wasteland around it. Steam vents, Factorum spires belching promethium smoke into a sky that hadn't seen stars in 3,000 years, the constant rumble of machinery that never slept because sleeping machinery was wasteful machinery, and waste was heresy. Optimus Prime, last of the Primes, leader of the Autobots, had arrived in Warhammer 40,000, and he had absolutely no idea how much trouble he was in. The first Imperial citizens to see him were a work gang of menials, trudging toward the early shift at Smelting Complex 19. They stopped, frozen, their minds trying to process what their eyes were telling them. An abominable intelligence. That was the first thought, drilled into every Imperial citizen from birth. Machines that think are an affront to the Emperor. Machines that walk like men are tools of the Dark Age that must be destroyed. One of the menials, a woman whose designation was Worker 7743 Sigma, did what any loyal Imperial citizen would do too. She hit the emergency Vox station mounted on the nearest support pillar and screamed into it, "Abomination! Abomination in District 7! The machine walks! The machine walks!" Across Vulcanus Prime, alarms began to wail, and in his crater, Optimus Prime heard those alarms and understood, with the pattern recognition that had kept him alive through 4 million years of war, that he had just landed in the middle of something very, very wrong. The first Chimera armored transport arrived within 6 minutes, which was actually impressive considering the Manufactorum district's congested transit ways. Commander Reckon of the 44th Vulcanist Defense Battalion had been drinking recaf and reviewing supply manifests when the alarm came through. Abominable intelligence sightings were rare but not unheard of. Usually turned out to be malfunctioning servitors or tech heresy from overzealous menials trying to jury-rig equipment without proper blessing. This was not a malfunctioning servitor. Reckon stood in the commander's cupola of his chimera, magnoculars pressed to his eyes, staring at the thing in the crater. Behind him, 2 more chimeras had formed a loose cordon, their heavy bolters and multi-lasers trained on the target. 40 troopers of the Imperial Guard, laser guns at the ready, had deployed in textbook formation, overlapping fields of fire, clear retreat lanes, Commissar positioned where he could shoot anyone who ran. Emperor's throne, Reckon breathed. He'd fought in the Spinward Crusade, had seen Tau battlesuits and Eldar war constructs, had even glimpsed a Chaos dreadnought from a very safe distance before artillery reduced it to slag. This was different. The craftsmanship was clean, pristine. No rust, no corrosion, no holy oils weeping from joints, no devotional scrolls or purity seals. Just smooth metal plates that seemed to shift and reconfigure as he watched, adapting to some purpose he couldn't fathom. "Sir," Sergeant Yulin said from beside him, voice tight with the kind of fear that came from knowing you were looking at something that broke the rules. "Orders?" Before Reckon could answer, the thing moved. Not aggressively. It raised its hands slowly, palms outward, in what any rational being would recognize as a gesture of peace. But rational and Imperial didn't always overlap. "Hold fire!" Reckon bellowed. Because Commissar Dravik had his bolt pistol half raised and several troopers had their fingers tightening on triggers. "Nobody shoots until I give the order!" The machine, and Emperor help him, it was clearly a machine despite how it moved like something alive, took one careful step forward. The ground trembled. Its head, shaped disturbingly like a helmeted human skull but wrong in the proportions, turned to regard them. Those blue optics focused with an intensity that made Reckon's skin crawl. Then it spoke. "I mean you no harm." The voice was deep, resonant, and came through in flawless Gothic, despite emanating from something that had no business speaking at all. "I am Optimus Prime, and I come in peace." The words hung in the ash-thick air. Somewhere in the ranks, a trooper made the sign of the Aquila. Another began muttering prayers to the Emperor. Commissar Dravik's knuckles were white on his bolt pistol grip. "It speaks," Reckon said, more to himself than anyone else. "Throne's sake it speaks." "Men of iron spoke," Dravik said coldly. "Before they murdered billions, before they nearly ended humanity, before the Emperor himself struck them down." The Commissar raised his voice. "Abomination! You stand in violation of every sacred law, by the authority of—" "Wait." Reckon held up a hand, his strategic mind overriding his indoctrination for just a moment. "If it wanted us dead, we'd already be dead. Look at it. Look at the weapons integrated into its frame." He'd seen enough Xenos tech to recognize weapon systems when he saw them. This thing had firepower built into its arms that could probably slag all 3 chimeras before they got a shot off. "It's not hostile." "Not yet," Dravik countered. Optimus Prime, if that's what it truly called itself, took another step forward, slower this time, even more deliberate. "I understand your fear. I am unfamiliar, unknown, but I assure you, I am not your enemy. I was." The massive machine paused, and something in that hesitation felt almost human. "I was not expecting to arrive here. The space bridge malfunctioned. I need to understand where I am and how to return to my people." "Your people," Reckon repeated. "There are more of you?" "Not here. Not in this place." Those blue optics swept across the industrial wasteland, and Reckon would swear later that he saw something like sadness in that inhuman gaze. "This world. What do you call it?" "You stand on Vulcanus Prime," Reckon said, his training taking over even as his mind screamed that he was negotiating with an abomination. "Forge world of the Adeptus Mechanicus, sovereign territory of the Imperium of Man. And you, whatever you are in a great deal of trouble." "The Imperium of Man," Optimus repeated, processing. "And you serve this Imperium?" "With our lives," Dravik interjected sharply. "As the Emperor wills. And the Emperor's will is clear on machines that think. They must be destroyed." Optimus Prime's optics dimmed slightly. "I see. Then it seems we have a problem." In the distance, Reckon heard it, the distinctive whine of more engines. Reinforcements were arriving, and with them, inevitably, would come the Mechanicus. Once the tech priests saw this thing, all bets were off. The commander had minutes, maybe less, to decide whether he was dealing with a threat that needed to be eliminated or something else entirely. Something his training had never prepared him for. A thinking machine that didn't want to kill them. The Inquisition has eyes everywhere. That's not paranoia. It's doctrine. Every Vox transmission, every astropathic pulse, every whispered prayer carries the possibility of observation. So when Commander Reckon's garbled report hit the planetary defense network, unknown Xenos construct, possibly sentient, non-hostile but unidentified, it took exactly 47 minutes for the message to reach someone who mattered. Inquisitor Helveticus Crane of the Ordo Xenos was not a patient man, but he was a thorough one. He sat in his private chambers aboard the strike cruiser Unrelenting Truth, orbiting Vulcanus Prime on what the Imperial Navy logs listed as routine inspection. There was nothing routine about Crane's work. He'd spent the last 15 years hunting down traces of men of iron, that ancient nightmare from humanity's darkest age, and every lead had turned cold, until now. "Play it again," he commanded his servo skull, Malachi 7. The skull's optical implants flickered as it projected the picked capture one more time. Grainy, taken from a chimera's frontal auspex, but clear enough. 18 meters of autonomous machinery, bipedal, humanoid configuration but distinctly non-human proportions. No visible Mechanicus markings, no Imperial iconography, nothing that suggested it had been built in the last 10 millennia, and it had spoken, in Gothic. "Analysis," Crane said. His savant, a wizened woman named Priscilla, whose augmetic implants had long ago replaced most of her brain, rattled off flat monotone. "Configuration does not match any known STC template. Alloy composition appears inconsistent with Imperial metallurgy. Movement patterns suggest advanced servo motor systems far exceeding current Mechanicus standards. Linguistic capabilities imply sophisticated cogitator matrix or genuine artificial intelligence," Crane finished. He stood, his powered armor's joints whispering as he moved to the viewport. Below, Vulcanus Prime turned slowly, its surface a patchwork of industrial sprawl and ash wastes. "How long until we make planetfall?" "The Thunderhawk is prepared, Inquisitor. We can be at the site within the hour." "Make it 30 minutes. Crane turned to his retinue, 2 Deathwatch Space Marines on loan from Watch Fortress Ariok, a sanctioned psyker whose dead eyes saw things mortals shouldn't, and his interrogator, a young woman named Castia, who had a gift for making even the most recalcitrant subjects talk. "Full combat loadout. Assume hostile until proven otherwise." "And if it is men of iron, my lord?" That was Brother Sergeant Orthran, his black armor bearing the silver arm of his parent chapter, the Silver Skulls. The Space Marine's voice was a low rumble, like rocks grinding together. Then we do what the Emperor commanded 10,000 years ago. Crane's hand rested on his master-crafted bolt pistol, a weapon that had ended 17 different threats to the Imperium's stability. We kill it. By the time Crane's Thunderhawk screamed through Vulcanus Prime's polluted atmosphere, the situation on the ground had evolved. Evolved wasn't quite the right word. Festered might be more accurate. Commander Reckon had managed to establish a perimeter around the crater, but it was a nervous perimeter. 3 full companies of the 44th Vulcanus Defense Battalion now surrounded the massive construct, along with 2 Lehman Russ battle tanks and a Hydra flak platform that someone had requisitioned from the local PDF. Overlapping fields of fire covered every angle, and if the order came to open up, they could reduce the crater to molten slag in under 30 seconds. But the thing, Optimus Prime as it insisted on calling itself, hadn't attacked. It had simply stood there, watching, waiting. Occasionally asking questions in that unsettlingly articulate Gothic. "Your Imperium spans how many worlds?" it had asked at one point. "1 million, Reckon had answered, because refusing to answer seemed more dangerous than answering. Give or take, the exact count is complicated. 1 million worlds. That pause again, that strange contemplation. And they're all at war? The galaxy is at war, machine. It has been for 10,000 years. 10,000 years of constant warfare. Optimus Prime's head had tilted slightly, a gesture so human it made Reckon's skin crawl. How do your people survive? How do they maintain hope? That question had silenced Reckon. Hope. When was the last time anyone had asked about hope? Hope was for children who didn't understand that the galaxy was a charnel house. Hope was the first step on the road to disappointment. Hope was... The Thunderhawk's landing had interrupted his thoughts, and Reckon had never been more grateful for a distraction. Inquisitor Crane strode across the rockcrete, his retinue fanning out in a practiced formation. The inquisitorial rosette gleamed on his chest, and every guardsman in sight immediately saluted. Even Commissar Dravik, who answered to no one but the commissariat itself, showed respect. "Inquisitor," Reckon said, snapping off his best salute. "The situation is... Briefing can wait, Commander." Crane's eyes were already locked on Optimus Prime. "I want to hear what it has to say for itself." The Inquisitor walked forward, stopping just outside laser gun range, but well within the thing's reach if it decided to attack. Brave, Reckon thought. Or suicidal. With the Inquisition, it was sometimes hard to tell the difference. "I am Inquisitor Helveticus Crane of the Ordo Xenos," Crane announced, his voice carrying across the crater. "I speak with the authority of the God Emperor of mankind himself. You will identify yourself, state your origin, and explain your presence on this world. Failure to comply will result in your immediate termination." Optimus Prime regarded the Inquisitor for a long moment. Then, with that same careful deliberation, he knelt. It was a gesture of respect, of non-aggression, bringing his massive frame down so that his optics were level with Crane's eyes. "I am Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. I come from a world called Cybertron, though I suspect that name means nothing to you. I am here by accident, not design. A malfunction in our dimensional transport technology brought me to your reality." The machine's voice carried an undercurrent of something that might have been regret. "I did not mean to trespass. I seek only to understand where I am, and if possible, to return home." Crane studied the construct in silence. Reckon could see the Inquisitor's mind working, weighing possibilities, calculating threats. Finally, Crane spoke. "You claim to be from another reality entirely. Explain." And to Reckon's amazement, Optimus Prime did exactly that. The explanation took 20 minutes, and every word made Inquisitor Crane's headache worse. Optimus Prime spoke of a world of sentient machines, Cybertron, a planet-sized construct where artificial beings had lived for millions of years. He spoke of a civil war between Autobots and Decepticons, of a conflict over ideology and resources that had consumed their entire civilization. He spoke of something called the All-Spark, a source of life itself for his kind, and of a device called a space bridge that could fold reality to cross impossible distances. And he spoke of freedom, individual choice, the right of all sentient beings to determine their own fate. Every word was heresy piled upon heresy. "Let me understand this correctly," Crane said, his voice dangerously calm. "You are a machine that thinks, a machine that claims to have emotions, beliefs, and independent will. A machine that reproduces, creates more of itself without human oversight or control." "That is essentially correct, yes." Optimus Prime remained kneeling, though Crane suspected the gesture was purely diplomatic. "This thing could probably stand and tear through his entire retinue before anyone got a shot off. Though we do not reproduce in the way organic beings do, we are forged, sparked into being through—" Silence. Crane held up a hand. Behind him, Brother Sergeant Orthron and his fellow Deathwatch Marine, Brother Malachi of the Mortifactors, had their bolters raised. The Psyker, a hollow-eyed woman named Severine, was sweating despite the cold, her witch sight clearly showing her something that terrified her. "My lord," Severine whispered, her voice like wind through graves. "The warp, it doesn't touch him. At all. He's a void in the immaterium, empty, silent." That made Crane pause. Demons, Xenos Psychers, even corrupted technology. They all had warp signatures, however faint. But this thing registered as nothing. A blank spot where reality said something should be. It was like staring at a servitor, except servitors had human components, souls twisted and bound into service. This had nothing. "You understand," Crane said carefully, "that everything you've described is an affront to the Imperium's most sacred laws. Artificial intelligence led to the collapse of human civilization during the Age of Strife. Thinking machines murdered billions. The Emperor himself decreed that such abominations must never exist again." "I understand your fear," Optimus Prime replied. "I have encountered similar fears on other worlds, but I am not your ancient enemy. My people did not wage war against humanity. We have fought alongside humans, protected them, died for them. We believe in the sanctity of life, all life, organic and mechanical alike." Commander Reckon, standing behind the Inquisitor, felt his worldview cracking. He'd been raised on stories of the Men of Iron, nightmare tales of humanity's creations turning on their makers. But this thing spoke with genuine conviction. It sounded noble. How could an abomination sound noble? "Pretty words," Commissar Dravik interjected. "The heretic always has pretty words. It's how corruption spreads." "Your Commissar is not wrong," Crane admitted. "I have heard demons speak of peace and enlightenment while their very presence burned sanctity from the air. Words mean nothing. Actions, evidence, truth, these are what matter." He stepped closer to Optimus Prime, close enough that he could see his reflection in those alien optics. "So here is what will happen. You will submit to examination by the Adeptus Mechanicus. You will allow their tech priests to determine exactly what you are and how you function. You will answer every question put to you with complete honesty. And at the end of this process, I will decide whether you are a threat that must be eliminated or merely an anomaly to be contained. And if I refuse, then we will reduce you to your component atoms and spend the next decade analyzing the debris." Crane's hand rested on his bolt pistol. "Your choice. Peace, as you claim to prefer, or violence. But understand this. Violence with the Imperium of Man only ends one way." Optimus Prime was silent for a long moment, his optical processors undoubtedly calculating odds, running scenarios. Reckon had seen commanders make similar calculations before battle, weighing victory against casualties, success against sacrifice. It was strange and disturbing to realize this machine was doing the same thing. "I will submit to your examination," Optimus Prime said finally, "but I require one assurance in return." "You are in no position to require anything," Brother Orthron growled, his bolters targeting laser painting a red dot on the Autobot's chest. "Nevertheless, I must insist." Optimus Prime's gaze swept across the assembled Imperial forces. Guardsmen with laser guns, space marines with bolters, tanks with battle cannons. "I have hurt no one here. I have offered no violence. If your examination proves that I am not a threat, that I am not one of your men of iron, will you allow me to seek a way home? Will you help me repair or reconstruct the technology I need to return to my reality?" Crane considered this. The rational move was to promise anything, secure cooperation, then eliminate the threat regardless. It's what his training demanded, what the Inquisitorial Handbook prescribed for dealing with potential Xenos tech contamination. But something in the machine's tone gave him pause. There was no deception there, no guile, just honest inquiry. An appeal to fairness. Fairness. The Imperium didn't do fairness. The Imperium did survival. "If," Crane said slowly, and this is a significant if the Mechanicus determines you are not a threat, if you pose no danger to the Imperium, if you can be trusted, then I will personally authorize resources to assist your departure. The Emperor knows we have enough problems without adding interdimensional wanderers to the list. Then we have an accord." Optimus Prime stood slowly, rising to his full height. The ground trembled. "I will cooperate fully with your examination. You have my word." "The word of a machine," Dravik muttered. "The word of a Prime," Optimus corrected gently. "Where I come from, that means something. I hope it can mean something here as well." Crane turned to Commander Reckon. "Establish a secure perimeter. No one in or out without my authorization. Vox the Mechanicus Cathedral. Tell Fabricator General Hexter that I'm invoking inquisitorial prerogative and requisitioning his entire Xenotechnology division." He glanced back at Optimus Prime. "And pray to the Emperor that we all survive whatever comes next." As Reckon rushed off to carry out the orders, Severine the Psyker touched Crane's arm. Her voice was barely audible. "My lord, I sense something approaching from the east. Something green and loud and terrible." Crane's blood ran cold. "Orks?" "Wah, my lord, a big one. They'll be here within days." Of course. Of course there were Orks, because discovering a potentially universe-breaking artificial intelligence wasn't complicated enough. Now they had a green skin invasion to deal with simultaneously. Crane looked at Optimus Prime, then at the ash-choked sky, then back at the machine. "It seems, Optimus Prime, that your introduction to our galaxy is about to become significantly more violent. I hope your people's combat protocols are as advanced as your linguistics." Optimus Prime's optical shutters narrowed in what might have been determination. "Inquisitor, I have been fighting a war for 4 million years. If these Orks want a battle, I will give them one they won't forget." Despite everything, despite every law and doctrine screaming that this was wrong, Crane found himself almost believing the machine. Almost. The Orks hit the outer settlements 72 hours later, which was actually slower than Severine had predicted. Apparently, even greenskins needed time to work up a proper wog, and this one was building momentum like an avalanche. The first refugees arrived at Manufactorum District 7 in battered trucks and on foot, their faces slack with shock. Reckon's men processed them through checkpoints, searching for signs of genestealer infection or chaos taint, standard procedure that felt absurd given the 18-meter-tall abomination standing in the middle of their defensive perimeter. Optimus Prime had spent those 3 days largely motionless, submitting to examination by an increasingly bewildered team of tech priests. Magos Xenologus Talcrin had arrived with his entire cohort: servo arms, auspex arrays, plasma torches, and enough scanning equipment to reverse engineer a Necron tomb complex. What they'd found had shaken the Mechanicus to its augmetic core. "Inquisitor," Talcrin had reported in his buzzing mechanical voice, "this construct violates every known principle of Imperial technology, yet functions with efficiency that borders on the divine. Its power source reads as a self-sustaining energy matrix of unknown composition. Its computational substrate is not silicon or biologics, but something that appears to quantum process across multiple dimensions simultaneously. And its structural integrity, Emperor preserve us, it can reconfigure its own mass at the molecular level." "Your assessment?" Crane had asked. "I believe we are looking at technology from a civilization that evolved along completely different principles than our own. Not men of iron. Something older. Or perhaps newer. Or—" The tech priest's optics had flickered with something approaching despair. "Or from outside our reality entirely, as it claims." Now, with Ork raiders burning their way across the ash wastes, that assessment felt less important than immediate survival. "DI's coming fast, boss!" The Voxnet crackled with panicked reports. "Hundreds of them! Trucks, bikes, some big stompy thing with guns!" Reckon stood on the command chimera's roof, staring through magnoculars at the dust cloud rising in the east. Even at this distance, he could hear them. A sound like the galaxy's worst engine malfunction, combined with tribal war drums and psychotic laughter. The Orks were announcing their arrival the way they always did, loudly, violently, and with absolutely no concern for their own casualties. "How many?" Commissar Dravik demanded. "I count at least 40 vehicles in the vanguard. If standard Ork doctrine holds, that means 300 to 500 greenskins in the first wave, with the main force behind them." Reckon lowered his magnoculars. "We've got 3 companies, 2 Lehman Russ, and a Hydra. Against a full Wah, that buys us maybe an hour before they overrun us." "Then we hold for an hour," Dravik said flatly, "and die with honor if the Emperor wills it. Or," a voice like grinding boulders interjected, "you could accept help." Optimus Prime had approached without sound, disturbing for something that massive. He'd been standing in his designated containment zone, surrounded by worried tech priests and suspicious space marines, but now he'd moved to the perimeter's edge. Brother Orthron and Brother Malachi immediately raised their bolters, but Inquisitor Crane held up a restraining hand. "You're under observation," Crane said. "That means you stay where we put you." "With respect, Inquisitor, that was before you learned an Ork warband was hours away from overrunning this position." Optimus Prime's optics were fixed on the approaching dust cloud. "I have fought creatures like these before, not Orks specifically, but savage, aggressive species that value only strength and violence. I know how to fight them." "You know nothing about Orks," Brecken said. "They're not like other Xenos. They're not rational. They're barely sentient. They exist only to fight, and they get stronger the more of them there are. And they literally believe their crude weapons work better because they think they do. They're a plague in metal and flesh, and the only solution is extermination." "Then let me help with the extermination." Optimus Prime's hands, massive manipulators that the tech priests had confirmed could reconfigure into various weapon systems, flexed slightly. "I told you I've been fighting a war for 4 million years. I meant it. My combat protocols are extensive, my weapons are functional, and unless I'm mistaken, you need every advantage you can get." Crane studied the Autobot leader in silence. Every instinct, every lesson drilled into him during his training screamed that trusting a thinking machine was insanity. But those same instincts also told him that 3 companies of guard infantry weren't holding against a Wa, not without support. "Your weapons," Crane said carefully. "Describe them." "I carry an ion blaster integrated into my right arm, capable of firing superheated plasma at high velocity. My left arm can deploy an energon sword, a blade composed of concentrated energy that can cut through most materials. I also have photon missiles in my back-mounted storage compartments, though I have limited ammunition." Optimus Prime paused. "And if necessary, I can reconfigure my body into an alternative mode for rapid transit or combat maneuvers." "Reconfigure," Talcrin breathed, his augmetic voice crackling with something between horror and awe. "You mean transformation? The legends spoke of such things. Machines that were more than one shape. We thought it impossible." "Nothing is impossible," Optimus Prime said. "Only improbable." The Ork war cry was audible now, even without Vox enhancement. "Wah! Wah! Wah!" A sound like the death of reason itself. Reckon looked at Crane. Crane looked at the approaching horde. Dravik gripped his bolt pistol tight enough to leave dents in the grip. "If you betray us," Crane said quietly, "if you turn on Imperial forces, if you show even the slightest sign of corruption or treachery, I will personally ensure your destruction. Brother Orthron has been instructed to target your central processor with melta charges. You won't survive that. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear, Inquisitor." Optimus Prime stepped forward, moving to the perimeter's edge where the defensive line was thinnest. "I will not betray you. You have my word as a Prime." "The word of a machine," Dravik muttered again. "The word of a warrior," Optimus Prime corrected. Then his voice shifted, amplifying through some internal speaker system until it boomed across the entire defensive perimeter. "Autobots, stand firm!" The shout was clearly automatic, a battle cry from another reality, but the effect on the Imperial forces was electric. Guardsmen who'd been checking their laser guns with shaking hands suddenly stood straighter. Tank crews who'd been muttering prayers found new resolve. Even the tech priests stopped their binary chattering and watched. In the distance, the Ork horde crested the last rise. Trucks and buggies and war bikes, all belching black smoke and festooned with spiked armor and guns that had no business working. And behind them, visible now even without magnoculars, came the infantry, a green tide of muscle and tusks and crude axes, roaring their savage joy at the prospect of a good fight. "Here they come," Reckon said unnecessarily. "Here we go," Optimus Prime replied. And then, as the first Ork round screamed overhead, the battle for Manufactorum District 7 began in earnest. The Orks opened fire at maximum range, which for greenskin weapons meant wildly inaccurate but terrifying. Solid slugs the size of a man's fist hammered into rockcrete, tore through sheet metal, and occasionally found flesh. A guardsman in 3rd Platoon went down screaming, his leg reduced to pulp by a shoot-around that had probably been aimed at something completely different. "Hold fire!" Reckon roared. "Wait for effective range!" The Lehman Russ tanks, however, had no such restrictions. Their battle cannons spoke with the voice of the Emperor's wrath. Thunderous reports that sent 120mm shells downrange into the Ork advance. The first shell caught a ramshackle truck dead center, detonating in a fireball that sent greenskin bodies tumbling through the air. The second shell missed entirely, plowing into empty ground. The third caught a warbike gang and transformed 6 Orks and their bikes into a crater. The Orks responded by accelerating and cheering louder. "Days got DACA! Good! More DACA makes it more fun! Wag!" Optimus Prime watched the Ork advance with tactical processors running full analysis. Pattern recognition, threat assessment, optimal firing solutions, systems that had tracked Decepticon attack runs and calculated Starscream's attack vectors, now worked to understand this new enemy. The data was troubling. The Orks displayed no formation, no coordination, no apparent tactical doctrine beyond charge forward and shoot. Yet they were surprisingly effective. Their vehicles were mechanical nightmares, welded scrap that violated every principle of engineering Optimus understood. But they worked. Somehow, impossibly, they worked. Engines that should seize ran smoothly. Guns with misaligned barrels fired true. Wheels that were different sizes rolled without wobbling. It was as if their sheer belief in functionality made it real. "Fascinating," Optimus murmured. "Psycho-reactive technology. Collective will affecting material reality." "That's the warp for you," Brother Orthron said from behind him. The Deathwatch Space Marine had positioned himself 20 meters back, Melt-A-Gun trained on Optimus's central mass, but he'd at least lowered it slightly to watch the approaching greenskins. Orks generate a Gestalt psychic field, makes their junk work, makes them tougher when they're in groups. It's not technology, it's barely physics. It's just wrong. Then I will have to adapt my tactics accordingly. The Ork front line hit effective range. Lasfire lit up the dust-choked air, brilliant red beams lancing out from the Imperial defensive line. The Hydra flak platform swiveled its quad autocannons downward and opened up, stitching a line of explosive shells across the Ork advance. Bodies burst. Vehicles exploded. A warbike took a Lascannon shot through its fuel tank and cartwheeled 40 meters before crashing. The Orks kept coming. "First rank, fire! Second rank, prepare!" The standard guard procedure, the mechanical discipline that had held 1,000,000 worlds against a galaxy of horrors. Last fire, reload, last fire, reload. The Emperor protects, but a good lasgun helps. A massive Ork truck, they called them battle wagons, Reckon's briefing had said, crashed through the outer perimeter's razor wire like it was spiderweb. Its mounted guns spat shells in every direction, and Orks poured from its rear compartment like a green avalanche. Big ones, covered in crude armor and wielding axes that could cleave a man in half. "Knobs," Commissar Dravik identified coldly. "Elite infantry. Throne. This isn't a raid, it's a proper assault." "Optimus Prime," Inquisitor Crane's voice cut through the Vox network, transmitted through a relay so the Autobot could hear. "You wanted to help. Now's your chance. Neutralize that battle wagon." "Acknowledged." Optimus Prime stepped forward, and even in the chaos of battle, Imperial troops cleared a path. His right arm reconfigured, plates sliding, components rearranging with liquid grace, until it formed a massive cannon assembly. Energy built in its core, a blue-white glow that made nearby tech priests gasp and mutter binary prayers. "For Cybertron!" The ion blaster fired. The effect was catastrophic. A bolt of superheated plasma, magnetically contained and accelerated to hypersonic velocity, crossed the distance in a fraction of a second. It struck the battle wagon's frontal armor and didn't just penetrate, it vaporized. Metal turned to gas. The energy bolt passed through the vehicle's entire length, flash boiling the Ork crew and detonating the ammunition stores simultaneously. The battle wagon exploded like a miniature sun. Debris rained down across 50 meters. Orks near the blast were thrown like toys. The shockwave knocked guardsmen off their feet. Silence fell over the battlefield for exactly 2 seconds. Then the Orks roared their approval. "Dat's a proper gun. Oi! Oi! Look at the size o' dat shooter!" "They're cheering," Reckon said, incredulous. "We just killed 30 of them and they're cheering." "Orks respect strength," Brother Malachi said. The Mortifactor's skull-painted helm turned toward Optimus Prime. "You just proved you're strong. They like that." Another battle wagon was approaching, this one larger and covered in spiked plates and what looked like human skulls. Standing in its open-topped fighting compartment was an Ork that made the knobs look small, easily 3 meters tall, armored in heavy plates covered in kill markings and fetishes, wielding a cleaver the size of a man. "War boss," Dravik identified. "Throne's sake. Their war boss is leading the charge personally." The war boss saw Optimus Prime, and its piggy red eyes lit up with something approaching joy. It pointed with its massive cleaver and bellowed, "You, big metal git! You's gonna be mine! Gonna crump you good and take your bits for me custom mega armor, wag!" Optimus Prime processed this declaration. The linguistic patterns were crude, the grammar was barely functional. But the intent was clear. Challenge issued. Dominance to be proven. Combat inevitable. "Inquisitor," Optimus said calmly, even as orc bullets spanged off his armored hide. "It appears their leader wishes to engage me personally." "Then engage him," Crane responded. "But Prime, don't lose. If you fall, their morale will skyrocket. We'll be overrun in minutes." "Understood." Optimus Prime's left arm reconfigured, and guardsmen within visual range gasped. The Energon sword materialized, a blade of pure energy, 3 meters long, glowing with blue-white intensity that made shadows dance across the battlefield. The war boss saw the sword and its grin got wider. "Oh, you's got a chopper too. This is gonna be good. Come on den. Show me what you got." The battle wagon accelerated, its massive wheels churning up dust and debris. The war boss braced itself, clearly intending to leap from the vehicle directly at Optimus in a flying charge that would either crush the Autobot or result in the most spectacular melee the Imperium had witnessed in years. Optimus Prime calculated trajectories, analyzed momentum, assessed structural weak points. His tactical computer, honed through millions of years of combat against foes ranging from Starscream's cunning to Megatron's raw power, provided optimal responses. Then he dismissed them all and simply braced himself for impact. The Orks wanted a fight? He'd give them one. The war boss leaped, a 3-ton projectile of muscle and metal and raw, violent enthusiasm, cleaver raised high for a killing blow that could split a tank. Optimus Prime stepped forward to meet it, Energon sword raised, and for the first time since arriving in the 41st millennium, he felt something almost like home. War, after all, was something he understood perfectly. The collision would have killed anything organic. 3 tons of war boss moving at combat velocity met 18 tons of Autobot leader, and the resulting impact sent shockwaves through the rockcrete hard enough to crack foundations 100 meters away. Optimus Prime caught the war boss's descending cleaver on his Energon blade. Metal screamed against energy, sparks fountained into the air, brilliant even in the ash-choked daylight. The war boss's momentum drove Optimus back 3 steps. His feet left gouges in the ground, but he held. His structural integrity systems reported stress, but no damage. "Good!" the war boss roared, showering Optimus with spittle. Up close, the creature was even more grotesque than at range, all muscle and tusk and scar tissue, with eyes that burned with a kind of savage intelligence that shouldn't exist in something that looked like evolution's worst mistake. "You's strong! I knew it! Gonna be a proper fight!" The war boss pressed down harder. Optimus's servos whined as he diverted more power to his arm actuators. His Energon blade held, but the cleaver was crude and massive, and backed by strength that defied physics. Around them, the battle raged. Laser gun fire and orc shooters, explosions and war cries. But here, in the center, it was just 2 warriors testing each other. "You don't have to do this," Optimus said, his voice processor somehow cutting through the chaos. "This war serves no purpose. Your warriors are dying for nothing." The war boss blinked, then threw back its head and laughed. "Dying? That's the point, you stupid git. The boys love a good scrap. And if they die happy. Ain't no better way for an orc to go." It was insane. It was fundamentally broken logic. It was... The war boss suddenly released pressure on the cleaver and swung a left hook that could have dented a Lehman Russ. Optimus barely rolled with it, the massive fist clipping his shoulder plate hard enough to activate damage alerts. He spun with the momentum, brought his blade around in a horizontal arc, aimed at the war boss's midsection. The green skin jumped back with surprising agility for something so massive. The energon blade missed by centimeters, cutting only air and the trailing edge of a crude banner attached to the war boss's armor. The banner fell, sliced cleanly in two. "Ha! Almost got me! Use fast for something so big!" The war boss charged again, cleaver sweeping in wide arcs that forced Optimus to give ground. Behind the war boss, its boys were engaging Imperial forces with renewed vigor. The sight of their boss in single combat was driving them into a frenzy. "Situation deteriorating," Commander Reckon's voice crackled across the Vox net. "We're being pushed back on the northern perimeter. Orks are breaking through." Brother Orthron moved without hesitation. The Death Watch Marine waded into the nearest knot of Orks, his bolter speaking judgment. Mass reactive shells detonated inside green-skinned bodies, turning them into ruptured green sacks. When an Ork knob charged him with a power claw, Orthron simply shot it in the face, then moved to the next target with the mechanical efficiency of the Adeptus Astartes. But even Space Marines had limits, and the Orks just kept coming. Optimus Prime blocked another cleaver strike, then another. His combat protocols were adapting, learning the war boss's patterns. The green skin fought with brutal effectiveness. No wasted movement, no flashy techniques, just raw power applied with shocking precision. This wasn't a mindless beast. This was a warrior who'd survived countless battles through skill and strength. It reminded him of fighting Megatron. The thought triggered something deep in Optimus's combat matrix. Megatron had taught him many lessons over their endless war, and one was paramount. Sometimes you couldn't reason with an enemy. Sometimes all that remained was to prove, definitively, who was stronger. Optimus stopped retreating. The next cleaver strike came in, and instead of blocking, he sidestepped. The massive blade passed close enough to scrape his chest plate. Before the war boss could recover, Optimus drove his fist, the one not holding the energon blade, directly into the greenskin's face. The impact would have liquefied a human skull. The war boss's head snapped back, blood fountaining from its mashed nose. It staggered, shook its head like a wet grox, then grinned even wider through the blood. "Now that's more like it. No more o' dat soft talk, just proper violence." It rushed forward again, this time forsaking technique entirely. The war boss swung its cleaver in an overhead chop that would split Optimus in half if it landed. Optimus raised his energon blade horizontally, catching the cleaver at the midpoint. Then he twisted, applying leverage and strength simultaneously. The cleaver, for all its crude mass, was still just metal. The energon blade, concentrated energy operating at temperatures that could melt through starship armor, was something else entirely. The two weapons locked for a moment, then the cleaver began to glow red where it met the blade. Wag! The war boss pushed harder, but physics was physics, even when Orks were involved. The cleaver's metal softened, weakened, failed. The blade sheared through. The cleaver's upper half tumbled away, glowing red-hot. The war boss stood there, holding just the hilt and a stub of metal, looking at it with something approaching confusion. "Oi," it said. "That's not—" Optimus spun and drove his energon blade through the war boss's chest. The blade entered between armor plates, cut through muscle and bone and whatever passed for vital organs in an Ork, and emerged from the greenskin's back in a flash of blue-white energy. The war boss made a gurgling sound. Its eyes went wide. "Zoggin' hell!" it managed. "That's a proper chopper!" Optimus withdrew the blade. The war boss swayed, green blood pouring from the massive wound. It should have fallen immediately. Any organic creature with that much damage should have been dead before hitting the ground. The war boss took 2 steps forward, raised its fist, and threw one last punch. Optimus caught the fist in his free hand. The war boss's strength was fading, but even dying, it was formidable. They stood there for a moment, locked together, Autobot and Ork, alien intelligence and savage warrior. "You fought well," Optimus said quietly. "In another time, another war, you might have been worthy of respect." The war boss's eyes focused on him one last time. "Use the best scrap I ever had." Then it died, going from ferocious warrior to dead weight in an instant. Optimus released it, and the massive body crashed to the ground, raising dust. For a heartbeat, the battlefield went silent. Then the remaining Orks looked at their fallen war boss, looked at Optimus Prime standing over the body, blade still glowing, and made the most Orky decision possible. "The boss is dead. Time for a new boss. Who wants to fight the big metal boss?" And just like that, half the Orks turned on each other, fighting to determine who would get the honor of challenging the metal boss next. The other half kept attacking Imperial forces, but their coordination, such as it was, had completely collapsed. "They're fighting each other," Reckon said, watching through his magnoculars with disbelief. "They're actually fighting each other." "Ork psychology," Brother Malachi explained, his voice carrying grim satisfaction. "The Prime killed their leader. They'll spend the next hour sorting out hierarchy. It gives us time." Inquisitor Crane stepped forward, approaching Optimus Prime as the Autobot deactivated his Energon blade. The Inquisitor's expression was unreadable. "That," Crane said slowly, "was the most effective piece of xeno-psychological warfare I've witnessed in 15 years of service. You didn't just kill their leader, you shattered their command structure." "I simply did what was necessary," Optimus replied. He looked down at the war boss's body. "Though I wish there had been another way." "In the 41st millennium," Crane said, "there is never another way." The Mechanicus pilgrimage arrived 6 hours after the Ork attack had finally broken and scattered. By then, Manufactorum District 7 looked like something from the Age of Strife. Scorched rockcrete, burning vehicles, and 347 Imperial casualties being processed through the chirurgeon tents. The Orks had lost easily triple that number, but Orks didn't count casualties the way humans did. They'd had a good scrap, and that's what mattered to them. Optimus Prime stood at the perimeter's edge, running internal diagnostics. His armor had taken damage, nothing critical but enough to warrant repair. His Energon reserves were at 73%. His combat subroutines were already filing away data about Ork tactics, psychology, and physical tolerances for future reference. The sound of approaching engines made him turn. Not military vehicles this time. These were Mechanicus transports, painted the red and white of Mars, festooned with holy symbols and purity seals. They processed through the checkpoints with the kind of priority clearance that made even Inquisitors step aside. "Oh no," Commander Reckon muttered. "They brought a Magos Dominus." "Is that bad?" Interrogator Castia asked. She'd spent the battle in a fortified command post, documenting everything with recording equipment for the Inquisitorial archives. "A Magos Dominus is one step below a Fabricator General. They don't leave Mars for anything less than critical situations." Reckon lowered his magnoculars. This just got political. The lead transport's doors hissed open with a blast of incense-laden air. What emerged was barely recognizable as human. Magos Dominus Archon 12 was more machine than flesh. Servo arms extending from a hunched back, mechadendrites writhing like metal tentacles, optical implants that glowed red in the ash-choked gloom. What little organic material remained was encased in blessed steel and covered in devotional script. Behind the Magos came an entire processional of tech priests, ranging from junior adepts, still mostly flesh, to ancient datasmiths whose brains floated in nutrient tanks. They carried scanning equipment, recording devices, and what looked disturbingly like dissection tools. Optimus Prime. Magos Archon 12's voice was pure machine synthesis, emotionless and precise. By the authority of the Fabricator General of Mars and in the name of the Omnissiah, you are hereby declared a priority existential query. You will submit to comprehensive theological and technical analysis. Theological? Optimus repeated the word carefully. I was under the impression this was a technical examination. The Adeptus Mechanicus makes no distinction between the technical and the theological, Inquisitor Crane said, stepping forward. To them, technology is faith, and faith is technology. The Omnissiah is their god, and the machine god speaks through holy patterns and sacred algorithms. He glanced at the Magos. Though I wasn't aware Mars had been informed of this situation. All significant technological discoveries are reported to Mars, Inquisitor. It is doctrine. Archon 12's mechadendrites flexed as he approached Optimus Prime. Optical sensors sweeping across the Autobot's frame with an intensity that was almost predatory. And this is far more significant than a mere discovery. This may be the most important technological event in 10,000 years. Or the most dangerous, added a new voice. Another tech priest emerged from the transport, this one smaller, more humanoid in proportion, though still heavily augmented. Magos Xenologus Serath 9. I've studied men of iron fragments recovered from dead worlds. Your configuration shares certain architectural philosophies, but the implementation is completely alien. It's as if someone took the concept of autonomous intelligence and rebuilt it from first principles in a completely different technological paradigm. Because I'm not from your paradigm, Optimus said patiently. As I've explained, I come from an alternate reality, yes. Archon 12 waved a servo arm dismissively. We've read the reports. Frankly, the metaphysics are less interesting than the mechanics. Your transformation capability alone would revolutionize Imperial technology. Your power source could solve the Imperium's energy crisis. Your computational architecture is beyond your understanding or replication. A flat, mechanical voice interrupted. Everyone turned. From behind Optimus Prime, where he'd been standing silent watch, Brother Orthron stepped forward. But he wasn't speaking. The voice was coming from the servo skull hovering at his shoulder. Inquisitor Crane's personal servo skull, Malachi 7. The Ordo Xenos has been analyzing this construct's technology for 3 days, Malachi 7 continued in its dead monotone. Conclusion. Any attempt to reverse engineer or replicate will fail. The fundamental principles are incompatible with our technological base. It would be like trying to make a laser gun work using Ork logic. The physics simply don't align. Impossible, Serath 9 said flatly. All technology can be understood with sufficient analysis. Not all technology exists in the same reality framework, Optimus interjected. My people developed along different physical laws. My power source, my transformation cog, even my basic neural architecture. They operate on principles that may not fully exist in your universe. The space bridge malfunction that brought me here likely bridged not just space, but fundamental physical constants. The assembled tech priests fell silent, their mechanical voices stilling. It was Archon 12 who finally spoke, and there was something like hunger in his synthesized voice. Are you implying that you are physically impossible? That you exist in violation of our natural laws? I'm saying I exist according to different natural laws, and forcing those laws to coexist with yours. Optimus paused, his processors accessing data from the space bridge malfunction. It may not be stable long-term. That statement hung in the air like a death sentence. Explain, Crane commanded. During the battle, I noticed something. The Orks' weapons, crude, barely functional by my standards, work because of what you call the warp. A psychic field that makes belief affect reality. That shouldn't be possible in my universe. Matter and energy follow consistent, predictable laws. Optimus Prime's optics dimmed slightly. But here, I felt that field touching me, trying to interface with my systems. My spark rejected it, but the attempt was made. If I remain here too long, either this reality will corrupt me, or my presence will destabilize local space-time. The warp is corruption, Commissar Dravik said, his hand unconsciously moving to his bolt pistol. If it's trying to touch you, it cannot corrupt what doesn't exist in the same metaphysical framework. Severine the Psyker spoke up. She'd been silent since the battle, but now she approached on unsteady legs, her witch sight clearly showing her something others couldn't see. I told you, Inquisitor, he's a void in the immaterium. The warp can't corrupt him because he has no soul for it to corrupt. But, her milky eyes fixed on Optimus with disturbing intensity. But he's not inert. He's not empty. There's something else there. Something that burns with its own light. Not warp energy. Not real space energy. Something other. The spark, Optimus said quietly. The essence of what makes me alive. Not a soul as you understand it, but close. It's what separates us from simple machines. What gives us personality and choice and life. Magos Archon 12's optical implants flared bright. Life without a soul. Consciousness without warp presence. Intelligence without biological substrate. The tech priest's voice carried an almost reverent quality. You are not the Omnissiah's gift to the Mechanicus. You are proof that the Omnissiah exists in forms we never imagined. You are heresy, Dravik finished. Everything you've said is heresy. Thinking machines, alternate realities, souls that aren't souls. This is exactly the kind of knowledge that led to the Age of Strife. And yet, Brother Malachi rumbled, he fought beside us, killed the Ork war boss, saved Imperial lives. If this is heresy, it's remarkably helpful heresy. The argument was building, tech priests and soldiers and inquisitorial agents all weighing in when a new alarm cut through the debate. The Voxnet crackled with panicked chatter. Multiple contacts, northeastern approach, they're moving fast. More Orks? Reckon demanded, already moving toward the command post. Negative. Signatures are wrong. They're Emperor's Throne, they're Astartes. Multiple Astartes. Everyone froze. Space Marines didn't just show up unannounced. They operated on their own authority, answered to their chapter masters, and generally gave precisely zero consideration to anyone else's plans or jurisdictions. The roar of jump packs confirmed it. 6 figures in power armor descended from the ash-choked sky, retro thrusters firing. They landed in perfect formation, ceramite boots cracking rockcrete. Their armor was painted deep blue, with white shoulder pads and the symbol of an Ultramarines chapter marking their allegiance. But these weren't Ultramarines. The heraldry was different, a silver gauntlet clutching a lightning bolt. Storm Wardens, Brother Orthron identified, his voice carrying surprise. What are they doing here? The lead Space Marine stepped forward, his helmet locked onto Optimus Prime. When he spoke, his Vox-amplified voice carried the authority of the Adeptus Astartes. I am Codiciaire Hadrian of the Storm Wardens chapter. We received astropathic reports of an abominable intelligence on Vulcanus Prime. We are here to assess the threat and, if necessary, eliminate it. His storm bolter was already raised, and it was pointing directly at Optimus Prime's head. The tension was thick enough to cut with an energon blade. 40 weapons, laser guns, bolters, plasma pistols were suddenly tracking between Optimus Prime and the newly arrived Storm Wardens. Nobody was quite sure who was supposed to shoot whom, but everyone was certain that if shooting started, it wouldn't end well. Lower your weapon, Codiciaire, Inquisitor Crane said, his voice carrying the absolute authority of the Inquisition. This situation is under Ordo Xenos jurisdiction. You have no authority here. With respect, Inquisitor, Codiciaire Hadrian's helmet didn't move. His storm bolter still trained on Optimus. The Adeptus Astartes requires no authority to eliminate threats to the Imperium. Standing orders from the Age of Strife are clear. Artificial intelligence is to be destroyed on sight. No exceptions. I am not your ancient enemy, Optimus Prime said calmly, though his combat protocols were already calculating odds. 6 Space Marines in full power armor, all veterans by their bearing. He could probably survive the initial volley, but the collateral damage to the Imperial forces around him would be catastrophic. I am not from your time or your reality. I have fought beside your soldiers. I have harmed no one who didn't attack me first. The Men of Iron said similar things, another Storm Warden interjected. This one's armor bore the markings of a tech marine, covered in sacred tools and blessed weapons. They spoke of peace and cooperation, right up until they turned 20 billion humans into components for their war machines. Brother Tech Marine Voss speaks truth, Hadrian said. Your words mean nothing. Only your existence matters, and your existence is forbidden. Brother Orthron stepped forward, positioning himself between the Storm Wardens and Optimus Prime. Brother Malachi did the same. 2 Deathwatch Marines facing 6 Chapter Marines. The mathematics were brutal, but their meaning was clear. Stand down, brothers, Hadrian said, surprise coloring his voice. You defend an abomination? We defend inquisitorial authority, Orthron replied, his voice like gravel. And more than that, we defend a warrior who proved himself in battle. The Ork war boss lies dead because of him. 300 Imperial lives were saved because of him. Honor demands recognition of that service. Honor? Hadrian's helmet tilted slightly. You speak to me of honor while defending something that has no honor to understand? It's a machine. It has no soul, no spirit, no... I have a spark, Optimus interrupted. I have fought for freedom and justice for 4 million years. I have made choices, felt loss, known friendship and sacrifice and hope. If that is not honor, then perhaps honor is not what I thought it was. Severine the Psyker swayed forward, her dead eyes somehow focusing on Codicier Hadrian. He speaks truth, my lord. I have looked upon him with the witch sight. He is empty of the warp, yes, but not empty of essence. There is something there that burns, not demonic, not Xenos, simply other. The testimony of a psyker, Hadrian said dismissively, as reliable as a navigator's promises. Then take my testimony. Magos Dominus Archon 12 stepped forward, his mechadendrites spread wide. I am a Magos Dominus of Mars, ranked 9.3 in the hierarchy of the Mechanicus. I have studied this construct. It is not Men of Iron. The architecture is completely incompatible. The operating principles violate our technological paradigm. To destroy it would be to destroy irreplaceable knowledge. Knowledge of how to build abominable intelligence, Hadrian countered. No. Archon 12's voice crackled with static that might have been frustration. Knowledge that proves the Omnissiah works in ways beyond our comprehension. This construct exists outside our understanding of machine consciousness. It proves that the boundary between machine and life is not where we thought it was. To destroy it is to destroy revelation itself. Revelation or damnation? Tech Marine Voss stepped forward. How do we know this isn't some elaborate deception? A Xenos trick to infiltrate Imperial space with corrupted technology? Because if it was a trick, Commander Reckon spoke up, surprising himself with his own boldness. It's the worst trick I've ever seen. It landed in the middle of a forge world surrounded by Imperial forces. It submitted to examination. It fought and bled for the Imperium. What kind of infiltrator does that? The smart kind, Hadrian replied. The kind that gains trust before the knife strikes. Optimus Prime had heard enough. His vocal processors amplified to maximum volume, and when he spoke, it was with the authority of a leader who'd commanded armies across millennia. Enough. The word echoed across the Manufactorum district. Everyone, Space Marine and Guardsman, Tech Priest and Psyker stopped and listened. I understand your fear. I understand your laws. I understand that in your history, thinking machines became monsters, and that scars you still carry 10,000 years later. Optimus Prime's optics swept across the assembled forces. But I am not your ancient enemy. I am a refugee from another reality, trying to understand where I am and how to return home. That is all. And if you cannot return home, Hadrian pressed, if you are trapped here, what then? Do we simply allow an abomination to exist because it fought one battle well? If I cannot return, Optimus Prime paused, his processors considering possibilities he'd been avoiding since arrival. Then I suppose I will have to prove every single day that I deserve to exist, that my life has value, that freedom is the right of all sentient beings, even those you fear. Pretty words, Hadrian said, but his storm bolter had lowered fractionally. They're more than words, Commissar Dravik said, and everyone turned to stare at the Commissar in shock. Dravik, who'd been calling Optimus an abomination since the moment he arrived, stepped forward. I've spent 3 days watching this thing, waiting for it to show corruption, waiting for it to prove me right about what it is. And you know what I've seen? A soldier, a warrior who fights with honor, who shows mercy when he could show cruelty, who protects the weak. Dravik's hand was nowhere near his bolt pistol for the first time since the standoff began. I still think it's an abomination. I still think it violates every law the Emperor laid down. But Emperor, help me. I think it's an abomination with honor. The silence that followed was profound. Codicier Hadrian stood motionless for a long moment. Then he opened a Vox channel, speaking to his chapter's command structure light years away. The conversation was brief, binary cant intermixed with high Gothic, too fast and technical for anyone but another Space Marine to follow. Finally, Hadrian lowered his Stormbolter completely. The Storm Wardens will not execute you today, Optimus Prime, he said formally. But understand, you exist on sufferance. One hint of betrayal, one sign of corruption, one innocent life harmed by your action or inaction, and we will return. We will bring our full chapter, and we will reduce you to atoms. I understand, Optimus replied, and I accept those terms. Furthermore, Hadrian continued, we will remain on Vulcanus Prime, observing, if the Inquisitor permits. Crane nodded slowly. The Inquisition accepts the Storm Warden's assistance in monitoring this situation. Your presence will be useful. Brother Tech Marine Voss approached Optimus Prime, his power armor's servos whining. He stopped just outside arm's reach and studied the Autobot with optical implants that cycled through multiple spectrums. I must confess, Voss said quietly, that I am fascinated despite myself. Your transformation mechanism. Can you demonstrate it? Optimus Prime hesitated. In my weakened state, a full transformation would tax my energon reserve significantly, and I'm not certain your reality can properly support the mass energy conversion involved in... Then show us something smaller, Magos Archon 12 suggested eagerly. A component. A single transformation sequence. Optimus considered. Then his right hand reconfigured, the same hand that had formed the ion blaster during battle. Plates slid, components rearranged, and within 5 seconds, what had been a hand was now clearly a weapon assembly. Every tech priest in visual range gasped. Several fell to their knees, muttering prayers. Archon 12's mechadendrites went rigid with what might have been religious ecstasy. Blessed Omnissiah, the Magos breathed. It's mechanical evolution in real time. Form following function with zero waste. Perfection in motion. It's how my people survive, Optimus said, returning his hand to standard configuration. Adaptation. Evolution. the ability to be more than one thing. Perhaps, Codicier Hadrian said slowly, we have much to learn from you after all, despite what you are. In the ash-choked sky above, something flickered. A brief distortion in space-time, gone almost before it registered on Imperial Auspex arrays. But Optimus Prime saw it with sensors calibrated to track space bridge signatures, and for the first time since arriving, he felt something like hope. His way home might still exist. The question was whether this galaxy would let him reach it. The distortion in space-time wasn't natural. Optimus Prime's sensors had been passively scanning the upper atmosphere since his arrival, looking for any trace of the space bridge energy signature. For 3 days, there had been nothing. Now, suddenly, there was a flicker, brief, unstable, but unmistakably similar to the dimensional cascade that had brought him here. Inquisitor, Optimus said carefully, not wanting to alarm the already tense situation. I'm detecting an anomaly in the upper atmosphere, 47 degrees north-northeast, approximately 80 kilometers altitude. Crane's hand immediately went to his Auspex scanner. Confirm anomaly, unknown energy signature, it's... He looked up sharply. Is that your technology? Possibly. If the space bridge is attempting to re-establish a stable connection, it would manifest as intermittent dimensional rifts while it searches for a proper anchor point. Optimus Prime's processors were already running calculations. The problem is that without my ship or proper equipment, I cannot communicate with it or guide it to a safe location. It might open anywhere. Define anywhere, Commander Reckon said with the tone of a man who already knew he wasn't going to like the answer. Above a populated area, inside a manufactorum, potentially within the warp itself if the dimensional coordinates drift too far from baseline reality. Optimus paused. Or it could simply collapse and never reappear, trapping me here permanently. Or, Codicier Hadrian added grimly, it could allow something else through. If your technology can punch holes between realities, then what prevents other entities from using those holes? It was a disturbingly good question. Optimus Prime's tactical computer immediately began running threat assessments. The space bridge had been designed with multiple fail-safes to prevent exactly that scenario, but the malfunction that had brought him here had clearly bypassed those fail-safes. If something was wrong with the bridge's dimensional anchoring protocols, we need to get eyes on that anomaly, Crane decided. Reckon, scramble aerial reconnaissance. I want picked captures and full Auspex readings. Hadrian, can your storm wardens... The VoxNet exploded with panicked chatter. Contact! Northeastern sectors, they're everywhere! What's everywhere? Reckon roared into the command Vox. Orks! Thousands of them! They're coming back! The Ork horde hadn't broken after all. They'd simply regrouped. And now they were returning in numbers that made the first assault look like a scouting party. Optimus Prime's optical sensors could see them even at this distance. A green tide flowing across the ash wastes, war engines and battle wagons, and enough Orks to drown District 7 in bodies. The killing of the war boss hadn't ended the war. It had only delayed it long enough for a new boss to emerge, and judging by the absolutely massive figure standing atop the lead battle wagon, easily 4 meters tall and encased in what looked like a walking fortress of scrap metal and guns, the new boss was even bigger than the last one. Mega armor, Brother Tech Marine Voss identified, his voice carrying professional respect. That's a big mech, combination war boss and tech specialist. They're rare among Orks because most of them blow themselves up experimenting with weapons. The ones that survive are extremely dangerous. How dangerous? Crane demanded. Dangerous enough to level this entire district if we give him time to deploy his contraptions, Voss replied. I've fought one before. Took an entire company of storm wardens to bring him down, and we lost 37 brothers doing it. Optimus Prime's tactical processors were already calculating odds. 3 companies of Imperial Guard, partially recovered from the first battle. 2 Lehman Russ tanks, 1 damaged, a handful of Space Marines, versus thousands of Orks, led by what amounted to their version of a super-heavy unit. The mathematics were not encouraging. "We can't hold," Reckon said flatly. "Not against that. We need to evacuate, fall back to the inner defensive rings, call for reinforcements from the Planetary Defense Force." "Evacuation would take hours," Crane countered. "We'd be caught in the open, and the PDF is already overstretched dealing with Ork attacks across 3 continents. No, we stand here. We make them pay for every meter." "Then we will die here," Commissar Dravik said simply. "But we will die as soldiers of the Imperium should, standing between the enemy and what we're sworn to protect." Optimus Prime looked at these humans, these flawed, fragile, fanatical humans who would rather die than retreat. It was simultaneously noble and tragic. They had courage that would shame many Autobots, but courage alone couldn't stop a Wa. Unless. "There may be another option," Optimus said slowly, "but it's risky. Potentially catastrophic if it fails." "We're already facing catastrophe," Crane said. "What's your option?" "The spatial anomaly. If I can reach it, if I can interface with the Space Bridge's protocols, I might be able to destabilize it in a controlled fashion. Create a localized dimensional cascade that would disrupt the area around it." "Disrupting space-time sounds bad," Reckon said. "It would be, for anything caught in the cascade. Matter and energy would be temporarily displaced into dimensional flux. Basically, anything in the affected area would cease to exist in normal space for approximately 30 seconds before reality reasserted itself." Magos Archon 12's optical sensors blazed with excitement and horror in equal measure. "You're proposing to weaponize dimensional instability. That's brilliant and heretical in equal measure." "It would only affect a limited area," Optimus continued, "perhaps 500 meters radius. But if we could position it correctly, if we could lure the Orks into the target zone, we could erase the heart of their assault force," Hadrian finished. "Decapitate their leadership and scatter the rest." The Space Marine was quiet for a moment. "It's insane. It violates approximately 300 articles of Imperial doctrine. The Mechanicus will scream about tech heresy, and it might tear a permanent hole in space-time that swallows this entire district. But it might work," Crane said. "And we're out of good options. Prime, can you reach the anomaly?" "Not on foot. It's 80 kilometers away, and I estimate I have 12 minutes before the Ork Vanguard reaches effective weapon range. I would need flight capability or rapid transport." "I can fly," Brother Voss said. The Tech Marine activated his servo harness, which extended a complex array of mechanical arms and what looked like a heavily modified jump pack. "But I can't carry you. You're far too heavy." "Then I'll need to transform." The words hung in the ash-thick air. Transform. The one capability that had made even the tech priests gasp with religious fervor. The ability that marked Optimus Prime as fundamentally different from any technology the Imperium had ever encountered. "You said transformation would tax your reserves," Crane reminded him. "It will, especially my vehicle mode, which requires the most extensive reconfiguration. But if I transform into my terrestrial transport form, I can achieve speeds approaching 400 kilometers per hour. I could reach the anomaly in minutes." "Your vehicle mode," Reckon repeated slowly. "You turn into a vehicle, a functional vehicle that can be driven." "In my reality, yes. Here I'm uncertain if the conversion will remain stable given the different physical laws, but I believe it's possible." Commissar Dravik laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "We're trusting the defense of an Imperial district to a thinking machine that turns into a truck. The Emperor truly does test our faith." "If you're going to do this," Hadrian said, his storm bolter already tracking the approaching Ork horde, "do it now. We'll buy you the time you need." Optimus Prime stepped back, creating space. His systems were already initiating transformation protocols, one of the most fundamental and sacred processes in Cybertronian existence. He'd transformed millions of times across millions of years, but never in another reality. Never with fundamental physical constants that might reject the very possibility of what he was about to attempt. His spark pulsed with energy, channeling power through transformation cogs and dimensional stabilizers. His frame began to shift, and every human watching took an involuntary step back as Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots, demonstrated what made his people unique in all of creation. His chest plates split and folded, his legs reconfigured, compressing and extending in ways that made Mechanicus' geometric subroutines crash. His arms collapsed into his body mass, redistributing according to principles that shouldn't work but did anyway. His head descended into his torso, protective armor sliding over it. The transformation took 4.7 seconds. Where Optimus Prime had stood, there was now a massive vehicle, part truck, part command transport, painted in red and blue with silver highlights. It was sleek and powerful, built for both speed and durability. The engine, which shouldn't exist because there was no visible fuel source, rumbled with quiet power. The driver's side door opened on its own. The interior was visible, a steering wheel, controls, seats designed for human scale. "Emperor's throne," Reckon breathed. "It actually works." "Someone get in," Crane ordered. "Voss, you're qualified for vehicle operation?" "I am, but—" "Then drive. Get Prime to that anomaly. Destabilize it over the Ork advance. Return alive if possible." Brother Tech Marine Voss approached the vehicle that was Optimus Prime like a man approaching a holy shrine. He climbed into the driver's seat, his power-armored bulk barely fitting. His gauntleted hands gripped the steering wheel. "This is insane," Voss muttered. Then, louder, "How do I—" The engine revved in response to his thought. The controls felt intuitive, almost alive. Voss realized with dawning horror and wonder that he wasn't driving a vehicle. He was partnering with a sentient being who had chosen to become a vehicle. "Let's roll out," Optimus Prime's voice came from the vehicle's speakers. And with the Ork horde approaching and reality itself at stake, Brother Tech Marine Voss of the Storm Wardens did something no Space Marine had done in 10,000 years. He trusted a thinking machine with his life. The vehicle that was Optimus Prime roared forward, accelerating toward the spatial anomaly at speeds that made even enhanced Astartes' reflexes struggle. Behind them, the defenders of Manufactorum District 7 prepared for a battle that would determine whether Optimus Prime's gambit was genius or suicide. The Emperor protects, they told themselves. But today, they'd need a little help from somewhere, or someone else entirely. Brother Tech Marine Voss had piloted Rhino APCs through active war zones, guided Thunderhawks through atmospheric re-entry under fire, and once drove a damaged Land Raider 40 kilometers with half its systems offline. Nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for this. The vehicle accelerated with impossible smoothness, the engine producing a sound that was somehow both mechanical and alive. The steering responded to Voss's thoughts almost before he could complete them, as if the machine was anticipating his intentions. Because, he realized with a jolt, it was. Optimus Prime wasn't being controlled. He was cooperating. "Your reflexes are excellent," Optimus's voice came through the vehicle's speakers, calm despite traveling at speeds approaching 300 kilometers per hour across terrain that would destroy most Imperial transports. "You adjust trajectory before obstacles fully register. Combat training?" "Storm Wardens train for rapid deployment operations," Voss replied, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We specialize in lightning strikes and immediate response scenarios." He paused. "This is the strangest conversation I've ever had while driving." "You're not driving. We're moving together." "There's a difference." They crested a ridge, and the Manufactorum sprawl fell away behind them. Ahead lay the ash wastes, kilometers of gray nothing, broken only by abandoned mining equipment and the occasional toxic sludge pool. The spatial anomaly flickered in the distance, visible now as a shimmer in the air like heat haze. except the temperature was approaching freezing. "Contact at 6 o'clock, Optimus announced. 3 Ork warbikes, pursuit trajectory." Voss checked the rear display, integrated seamlessly into what would be a rear-view mirror in a normal vehicle, and confirmed. 3 Orks on heavily modified bikes, engines screaming, crude guns already firing. The rounds went wide, kicking up ash plumes, but they were closing the distance. "Can you go faster?" Voss asked. "In this form, I'm approaching maximum velocity for ground-based travel, but I have defensive options." Something in the vehicle's rear compartment whirred. "Brace yourself." A panel opened in what Voss would have called the truck bed. A weapon assembly rose into position, sleek, alien, nothing like Imperial technology. It tracked independently, acquiring targets with precision that made Astartes' targeting systems look crude. The ion blaster fired 3 times. 3 blue-white bolts. 3 explosions as Ork warbikes and their riders ceased to exist in bursts of superheated plasma. "Throne," Voss breathed. "You can fire independently while maintaining mobility." "Multitasking is fundamental to Autobot design. We are soldiers first, vehicles second. The form supports the function, not the other way around." They were approaching the anomaly now. Voss could see it clearly. A tier in reality itself, roughly circular, maybe 10 meters in diameter, hovering 15 meters off the ground. Space around it warped visibly, light bending in ways that made his enhanced vision struggle to focus. Through the tear, he could see something. Not the warp. He'd glimpsed warp phenomena before, and they carried a wrongness that made his skin crawl. This was different. Geometric patterns that existed in too many dimensions, colors that had no name, the sense of looking at somewhere that was fundamentally elsewhere. "That's your home?" Voss asked. "That's a fragment of the space bridge attempting to reconnect across dimensional boundaries," Optimus corrected. "My home, Cybertron, is on the other side of that connection. If I can properly interface with it? And if you can't? Then we've driven 80 kilometers to watch reality collapse into a dimensional singularity." Optimus's tone carried what might have been dark humor. "But let's remain optimistic." The Vox crackled to life, Inquisitor Crane's voice strained. "Prime, whatever you're going to do it fast. The Orks have engaged. We're holding, but barely. That big mech has weapons that shouldn't exist, even by Ork standards. He's deploying some kind of force field generator that's deflecting our heavy weapons fire." "Acknowledged," Optimus replied. "Beginning interface protocols now. Voss, I need you to exit the vehicle. This next part might be dangerous for organic beings in close proximity." The vehicle stopped smoothly, and Voss climbed out, his ceramite boots crunching on ash-covered ground. Immediately, he felt exposed. No armor plating between him and the anomaly, no support. Just a space marine and his faith standing in the middle of nowhere while reality tore itself apart overhead. Optimus Prime transformed. Watching it from inside had been one thing. Watching it from outside was something else entirely. The vehicle unfolded, expanded, reconfigured with mechanical grace that made it look almost biological. In seconds, the 18-meter-tall Autobot stood where the truck had been, his blue optics fixed on the spatial rift above. "Remarkable," Voss murmured. "Every time I see it, it violates more principles of sacred geometry." "Sacred geometry is just geometry that hasn't been properly understood yet," Optimus said absently. His hands were already moving, fingers extending into complex interface tools that would have made Mechanicus tech priests weep with envy. "Now, let's see if I can communicate with a space bridge from the wrong side of reality." He reached up, and his fingers touched the edge of the dimensional tear. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Energy, raw, dimensional, impossible energy, discharged through Optimus's frame. His system screamed warnings as power levels spiked to dangerous levels. The space bridge was trying to pull him through, trying to drag him back to his reality, but the connection was wrong, unstable. like trying to force two magnets together with opposing poles aligned. "Prime!" Voss shouted, raising his bolter instinctively even though there was nothing to shoot. "What's happening?" "The bridge is recognizing my energy signature." Optimus's voice was strained, each word fighting through system overload. "But it can't. Establish proper lock, dimensional coordinates, misaligned." The tear in space was growing, spreading like a wound. Through it, Voss could see more of that alien dimension. Mechanical structures of impossible size, a sky that was somehow golden and dark simultaneously, and something moving in the distance. Something massive. "Prime, disconnect! You're making it worse!" "No, I can stabilize it. Just need to..." Optimus's other hand rose, both palms now pressed against the dimensional barrier. His spark was burning bright enough to see through his chest armor, a blue-white light that had nothing to do with the warp and everything to do with something older and stranger. "There. I have control. I can..." The Vox erupted with desperate chatter. "They're breaking through! The Big Mech's force field is down, but they're at the perimeter! Fall back to secondary positions! All units fall back! Where's that dimensional weapon? We need it now!" Optimus Prime's processors ran calculations faster than any Imperial cogitator could match. The space bridge was responding to his commands, but slowly, fighting against the dimensional misalignment. He could stabilize it properly, maybe even create a safe passage home. But that would take minutes he didn't have. Or he could do what Inquisitor Crane had suggested. Weaponize it. Tear it wider. Let dimensional instability flood into real space in a controlled cascade, and catch the Ork horde in the resulting chaos. It would mean abandoning his best chance of going home. The bridge would collapse completely after such a catastrophic destabilization. He'd be trapped in this brutal reality until he could find another way out. If another way even existed. 4 million years of war had taught Optimus Prime many lessons. One of them was that sometimes the right choice and the easy choice were completely different things. "Voss," Optimus said, his voice steady despite the power surging through his systems. "You need to run. Now. Get at least a kilometer away. This is going to be violent." "What are you doing?" "What I have to." Optimus Prime's spark flared brighter. His connection to the space bridge deepened, and he fed his commands directly into its dimensional substrate. "I'm weaponizing a space bridge, something my people swore never to do. And I'm staying in this galaxy, because people need help and I can't walk away from that, no matter what it costs me." "You're sacrificing your way home," Voss said with sudden understanding. "For us. For humans you barely know, in a galaxy you don't understand." "Freedom is the right of all sentient beings," Optimus replied. "And that includes the right to live. Now run, Brother Tech Marine. What comes next will not discriminate between friend and foe." Voss ran. His power armor's servos screamed as he pushed them to maximum output, covering ground in long, loping strides that ate up distance. Behind him, he could feel the air itself beginning to vibrate, reality growing thin. Optimus Prime pulled on the space bridge with all the computational power and physical strength his frame could muster. The dimensional tear widened, grew, became less like a window and more like a wound. Space-time was screaming in ways that had no sound but could be felt in the soul. If Optimus had possessed a soul. Instead, his spark burned with purpose as he calculated trajectories, timing, and the exact moment to release his control. On the battlefield of Manufactorum District 7, Inquisitor Crane watched his Auspex readings go completely insane. "All forces, brace for dimensional displacement. Maximum dispersal protocols, now!" The Orks, charging forward in their green tide, had no idea what was coming. The Big Mech, standing atop his battle wagon and directing the assault, saw only victory ahead. More enemies to crump, more loot to take, more glorious violence to... The sky tore open. The dimensional cascade hit the Ork horde like the fist of an angry god. One moment, there was a green tide of thousands. Orks in crude armor, vehicles belching smoke, the big mech's force field generator crackling with stolen energy. The next moment, space itself folded inward on that exact location, and reality simply stopped making sense. Orks vanished. Not exploded, not vaporized, just ceased to exist in normal space. Their war cries cut off mid-roar. Their vehicles hung suspended in a sphere of distorted space-time roughly 500 meters in diameter, then flickered out of existence like bad pict feed. The big mech had time for one startled grunt, "What the Zog?" before he and his entire command battle wagon were translated into dimensional flux. For 30 seconds, there was a perfect sphere of nothing hovering over the ash wastes. Not darkness, not emptiness, just absence. A hole in reality where things used to be, but weren't anymore, because the rules that said they should exist had temporarily stopped applying. Imperial forces, even kilometers away, felt it. Guardsmen stumbled as their inner ears registered spatial coordinates that shouldn't exist. Tech priests' augmetics sparked and crashed, unable to process sensor data that made no sense. Even the Space Marines, with their enhanced physiology and iron discipline, felt waves of nausea as reality did things reality shouldn't do. Then, with a sound like the galaxy taking a deep breath, reality reasserted itself. The sphere collapsed. Space-time snapped back into its proper configuration, and where 5,000 Orks had been charging forward in glorious wag, there was now significantly fewer Orks. About 300 survived. They stood in a rough circle around where the dimensional cascade had hit, looking dazed and confused. Their charge had completely broken. Their leadership was gone. Their big mech, the cunning git who'd cobbled together force fields and mega armor and kept the WOG organized, had simply ceased to exist. One Ork, a scarred veteran with more teeth than most, looked around at the devastation, looked at the spot where his boss had been, and made the most orky decision possible. "Welp, that's enough wag for one day. Leg it, boys." And just like that, the Orks retreated. Not in formation, not with any particular grace, just a green, scrambling rush back toward the wastes. They'd come for a fight, gotten way more than they'd bargained for, and decided that discretion was the better part of not getting erased from existence. At Manufactorum District 7, Commander Vrecken lowered his magnoculars with shaking hands. They're running. The Orks are running. They saw their boss and half their army vanish into nothing, Commissar Dravik said, his voice carrying something between horror and awe. Even greenskins have survival instincts. Crude ones, but they exist. Inquisitor Crane was already moving, barking orders. "Secure the perimeter! Get casualty reports! And someone find out if Optimus Prime survived whatever he just did!" The answer came through the Vox. Brother Techmarine Voss's voice, strained but intact. "Inquisitor, Prime is functional. Barely. The dimensional cascade took everything he had. His power reserves are critical. He's requesting immediate assistance." "On our way," Crane replied. They found Optimus Prime collapsed on his knees in the ash, his frame still smoking from energy discharge. The spatial anomaly above him was gone, completely collapsed, sealed as if it had never existed. Any hope of using it to return home had vanished with it. Magos Dominus Archon 12 arrived with his tech priest cohort, scanning equipment already whirring. "Blessed Omnissiah, the energy expenditure must have been catastrophic. His power matrix is operating at 17% capacity. Another few minutes and his core systems would have begun failing." "Will he survive?" Crane asked. "His construction is remarkably resilient. With rest and proper energy input, he should recover, though his fuel source is problematic. We still don't understand what energizes him." Optimus Prime's optics flickered, dimming and brightening erratically. "Energon," he said weakly. "My people run on Energon. It's..." Not found in this reality. I've been operating on stored reserves since I arrived. Reserves that are now nearly depleted. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Optimus Prime wasn't just stranded in this reality. He was slowly dying in it, running out of the fundamental fuel that kept his spark alive. "How long?" Crane demanded. "Days, maybe weeks if I minimize activity and enter stasis mode. But without Energon, my systems will eventually shut down, one by one. Until..." Optimus didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "Unacceptable," Archon 12 declared. "You are irreplaceable data, irreplaceable technology, irreplaceable proof of the Omnissiah's infinite forms. We will find a solution." "Unless this energon can be synthesized from local materials," Voss said, kneeling beside Optimus's massive frame, "there may be no solution. We don't even know its molecular composition." "It's not molecular," Optimus replied. "It's quantum, multidimensional. It exists partially in subspace. Your reality doesn't produce it naturally because your space-time has different fundamental constants." "Then we adapt," Severine the Psyker spoke up. She'd been silent since the dimensional cascade, her witch sight clearly having shown her things that disturbed even her damaged psyche. "The Imperium has lasted 10,000 years by adapting, by taking Xenos technology and making it serve humanity, by finding solutions where none should exist. If this energon is energy at its core, then energy can be provided." Psyker speaks wisdom. Archon 12's mechadendrites flexed thoughtfully. "If we cannot provide exact fuel, perhaps we can provide compatible energy, plasma, promethium, even carefully regulated warp energy, properly shielded." "The warp?" Optimus's voice carried alarm. "No. The warp is chaos. My systems are designed to reject it. It would..." "Not warp energy directly," Severine corrected. "Warp energy converted through psychic channeling into pure kinetic force. Filtered. Cleansed. I've done it before. Powering force weapons and maintaining void shields during warp transit. I can do it again." "You're proposing to fuel a thinking machine with psychic power," Dravik said flatly. "That's at least 7 different kinds of heresy." "It's survival," Crane countered. "Prime just saved this entire district, saved hundreds of Imperial lives, proved that he's not the enemy we feared. I won't let him die because we're too rigid to try unorthodox solutions." Codicier Hadrian and his storm wardens had arrived during this exchange, their armor still scorched from the battle. The Space Marine studied Optimus Prime with his helmet's augmented vision, then looked at Crane. "My chapter will not stand in the way of this," Hadrian said formally. "Optimus Prime has earned a chance at survival, though we will maintain observation protocols." "Understood and accepted," Crane replied. He turned to Severine. "Can you do this? Keep him functional until we find a permanent solution?" The Psyker approached Optimus Prime slowly, her dead eyes somehow seeing more than normal vision ever could. She placed one withered hand on his chest plate, just above where his spark burned weak but steady. "He burns," she whispered. "Not with warp light, but with something purer. Something that doesn't corrupt or twist. Just is. Yes. Yes, I can channel energy to him. It won't be perfect. It won't be his natural fuel, but it will keep him alive." "Then do it," Optimus said. "I accept the risk. I accept the dependence. Because I'm not ready to die. Not here. Not now. Not when there's still so much to understand about this galaxy." Severine closed her eyes, and power began to flow. Not warp energy. She was filtering it, transforming it through her own psychic matrix into something cleaner. Pure kinetic force, electromagnetic potential, the fundamental energy that powered stars and split atoms. It flowed from her into Optimus Prime's systems, and his spark responded, drinking it in desperately. It wasn't energon. It was barely compatible. But it was enough. Optimus Prime's optics brightened. His systems stabilized. Power returned to critical functions. He wouldn't be operating at full capacity, maybe 70% at best, but he would live. For now. "Thank you," Optimus said quietly. "All of you. You've given me a gift I can never repay. Continued existence in a galaxy that has every reason to reject me." "You repaid it already," Commander Vrecken said, gesturing toward the retreating Orks and the defenders who'd survived because of Optimus's sacrifice. "You saved us. You gave up your way home to save us. That's what heroes do." "I'm not a hero," Optimus replied. "I'm just a soldier trying to do what's right." "In the 41st millennium," Crane said, "that's the closest thing we have to heroes." The sun, such as it was, filtered through ash and industrial pollution, was setting over Vulcanus Prime. The battle was over. The district was saved. And Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots, last of the Primes, was alive in a reality that wasn't his own. The question now was what came next. Because the Imperium of Man didn't do mercy without purpose, and Optimus Prime represented both an asset and a threat too significant to simply ignore. Those questions would wait for tomorrow. Tonight, there were wounded to tend, dead to honor, and a thinking machine to keep alive against all logic and doctrine. In the grim darkness of the far future, sometimes survival was the only victory that mattered. 3 days after the battle, Inquisitor Crane convened what he euphemistically called a Strategic Assessment Council in the commandeered conference chamber of Manufactorum 7's administrative block. Everyone who mattered was present. Magos Dominus Archon 12, Codicier Hadrian and his storm wardens, Commander Vrecken representing the Imperial Guard, Commissar Dravik for political enforcement, and Severine the Psyker who'd become Optimus Prime's unlikely lifeline. Optimus himself stood at the chamber's far end, his massive frame requiring the removal of 3 walls just to accommodate him. He was operating at approximately 75% capacity now. Severine's energy transfers combined with experimental power cells the Mechanicus had jury-rigged were keeping him functional, but barely. "Let's address the primary question," Crane began without preamble. "What do we do with Optimus Prime? The immediate crisis is resolved. The Ork threat is neutralized for now. But we have a thinking machine of unknown origin sitting in the middle of an Imperial Forge world, sustained by tech heresy and dependent on a sanctioned psyker. This situation cannot remain indefinite." "Eliminate him," Dravik said flatly. "He served his purpose. He fought well, saved lives, proved he's not immediately hostile. But keeping him alive violates every sacred law. Better a clean execution now than corruption later." "Unacceptable." Archon 12's mechadendrites writhed with agitation. "Optimus Prime represents irreplaceable data. His existence proves the Omnissiah manifests in forms we never imagined. To destroy him would be to destroy divine revelation itself. Your divine revelation requires daily psychic energy transfers that strain our sanctioned psyker and drain resources we can't spare," Vrecken pointed out. "I'm not arguing for execution, but we need to acknowledge the practical problems. Severine can't sustain this indefinitely." The psyker spoke from her seat, her dead eyes fixed on nothing. "I can maintain current protocols for perhaps a month, maybe 2 if I ration my strength, but eventually I will fail, and when I fail, he dies, unless an alternative fuel source is found." "Which brings us to the second question," Crane continued. "Can we find an alternative? Can the Mechanicus synthesize this energon or discover a compatible substitute?" All eyes turned to Archon 12. The Magos' optical sensors cycled through several colors before settling on a dim red. "We have been analyzing Prime's energy requirements for 72 hours, the tech priest said. "The results are discouraging. Energon is not merely fuel, it is dimensional energy crystallized into stable matter through quantum processes that don't exist in our reality. Attempting to synthesize it would require fundamentally altering local space-time constants, which is..." He paused. "Impossible. Even for Mars." "Then he's dying," Hadrian stated bluntly. Slowly but inevitably. Unless we find energon deposits in this reality, which seems astronomically unlikely. Optimus Prime had been silent throughout this exchange, listening to these beings debate his continued existence with the same clinical detachment they might apply to an interesting geological formation. Now he spoke, his voice carrying across the chamber. There is one possibility you haven't considered. Which is? Crane asked. My ship, the Ark. When I was pulled through the dimensional rift, the Ark was in low orbit around Cybertron. If the space bridge malfunction was widespread enough, it might have pulled other things through, debris, equipment, possibly even the Ark itself. You're suggesting your ship is somewhere in our galaxy? Reckon's skepticism was evident. I'm suggesting it's a possibility. The Ark has energon reserves, fabrication equipment, and, most importantly, a full astrogation database of my reality. If we could locate it, I could become self-sufficient. No longer a burden on Imperial resources. And if we can't locate it? Dravik challenged. If it's on the other side of the galaxy, or never came through at all? What then? Optimus Prime was quiet for a long moment. Then I accept whatever fate you decide. Execution, imprisonment, dissection for research. I won't resist. I came to your reality by accident. I've tried to be helpful, but I understand that my existence creates problems. I won't force you to solve those problems if they prove unsolvable. The casual acceptance of his own death, or worse, silenced the chamber. These were hardened Imperial servants, accustomed to sacrifice and brutality. But there was something deeply wrong about hearing a sentient being calmly accept its own execution for the crime of existing in the wrong reality. Noble words, Hadrian said finally. But meaningless if we have no way to locate this Ark. The galaxy is vast. Even with Astartes' resources, searching it would take centuries. Not if we narrow the search parameters, Brother Techmarine Voss interjected. He'd been quiet until now, studying a data slate covered in complex calculations. Prime, when the space bridge malfunctioned, did it leave any trace energy? Any signature we could track? Possibly. The dimensional cascade I triggered to defeat the Orks might have been similar enough to the original malfunction to register on sensitive equipment. If your Auspex arrays recorded that energy signature, we could theoretically search for matching signatures elsewhere in the sector. The Forge world has sensor arrays across 3 continents, Archon 12 said, his voice rising with excitement. If we retroactively analyze their data for the past week, looking for space bridge energy signatures... It's a long shot, Crane said, but it's a shot. Voss, Archon 12, work together. Pull every sensor log from the past 7 days. Search for dimensional anomalies similar to what Prime generated. Start with the immediate sector and expand outward. And in the meantime, Reckon asked. In the meantime, Optimus Prime remains under protective observation. He's not a prisoner, but he's not free either. He's an asset of the Inquisition until we determine his final disposition. Crane's gaze swept the assembled council. Anyone who has a problem with that can file a formal protest with my office, where I will ignore it and proceed anyway. Nobody protested. The Inquisition had spoken. The search took 5 days. 5 days of Voss and Archon 12 buried in sensor data, running algorithms, comparing energy signatures, and slowly going mad from the sheer volume of information generated by a Forge world's surveillance network. 5 days of Optimus Prime existing in a strange limbo, not quite prisoner, not quite ally, sustained by a psyker who grew weaker with each energy transfer. Severine's condition was deteriorating faster than anyone had anticipated. The strain of channeling warp energy, filtering it, and transforming it into something compatible with Autobot physiology was burning through her life force. By day 4, she could barely stand. By day 5, she was coughing blood. You need to stop, Optimus told her during what would be their final transfer. You're killing yourself to keep me alive. That's not acceptable. You don't get to decide what's acceptable, Severine replied. her voice a rasp. "The Emperor gave me this curse, this gift, for a purpose. If that purpose is keeping you alive long enough to find your ship, then that's what I'll do." "Why? Why sacrifice yourself for me? You barely know me. Your people fear what I am." Severine smiled, a terrible skeletal expression on her withered face. "Because I've looked into the warp every day of my adult life. I've seen corruption, demons, chaos that would break normal minds. And then I touched your spark, and I saw something I'd forgotten existed. Purity. Purpose without corruption. You're not human, Prime, but you're not a monster either. You're just good. And the galaxy needs that, even if it doesn't realize it." She collapsed after that transfer bet. The medici rushed her to the chirurgeon tents, but they held little hope. Psychers who burned themselves out rarely recovered. That evening, Voss and Archon 12 burst into the command chamber where Crane and Optimus were reviewing defensive positions. "We found it," Voss said without preamble. "Or rather, we found something. A massive dimensional anomaly 3 days ago, approximately 47 light-years from Vulcanus Prime. The energy signature matches Prime's space bridge cascade within 93% accuracy." "Location?" Crane demanded. "The Death of Angels Nebula. Barely explored region, known for gravitational anomalies and sensor interference. If something came through there, it could have been hidden for days without detection." "That's Ork-infested space," Hadrian said, studying the star charts Voss had pulled up. "My chapter fought a campaign there 15 years ago. Barely won. The greenskins breed in those dead systems like vermin." "Then we go in force," Crane decided. "Optimus, if that's your ship, can you confirm it from distance?" "If I can get within scanning range, yes. The Ark's communication systems are unique. I'll recognize them immediately." "Then we have a mission. Voss, coordinate with your chapter. We'll need Astartes support for this. Reckon. Prepare a guard expeditionary force, light and fast, no heavy armor. Archon 12, requisition a transport vessel with the best sensors Mars can provide." Crane looked at each of them in turn. "We have one chance to find this ship before Optimus Prime's power runs out. We leave at dawn." "And Severine?" Optimus asked quietly. "Severine did her duty. Now we do ours." Crane's voice softened slightly. "We find your ship, Prime. We get you self-sufficient, and we make sure her sacrifice wasn't wasted." Optimus Prime stood silent for a moment, his spark burning low but steady. Then he spoke the words that had started so many missions across so many wars on so many worlds. "Then let's roll out." And in that moment, surrounded by space marines and inquisitors and tech priests in a galaxy that wasn't his own, Optimus Prime felt something he hadn't felt since arriving in the 41st millennium. Hope. The righteous conviction was a Viper-class scout sloop, fast, lightly armed, and equipped with sensor arrays that could detect a laser gun discharge from 3 systems away. It was also cramped, uncomfortable, and currently carrying a passenger load that made its machine spirit deeply unhappy. Optimus Prime barely fit in the cargo hold, and even then only by going into a stationary mode that minimized his profile. Around him, storm wardens checked their equipment with the methodical precision of space marines preparing for war. Commander Reckon's expeditionary force, 2 platoons of the best soldiers the 44th could spare, occupied the troop compartments. And on the bridge, Inquisitor Crane stood beside the ship's captain, watching the swirling madness of the Death of Angels Nebula grow larger in the viewport. "Therein lies madness," Captain Severus muttered. She was an old void hand, her face weathered by decades of warp travel, her augmetic eye constantly twitching as it processed sensor data. "The Death of Angels ain't called that for nothing. Ships go in, ships don't come out. Space is wrong there. Gravity pulls in directions that don't exist, and the Orks love it because it confuses Imperial sensors." "Can we navigate it?" Crane asked. Can. Yes. Should. That's the better question. Severus adjusted their course slightly, guiding the ship between two massive dust clouds. But since you're Inquisition and I value my head staying attached to my shoulders, we'll try. In the cargo hold, Brother Tech Marine Voss approached Optimus Prime. The Autobot was running on minimal power, his optics dim, his movements slow. Without Severine's transfers, he was consuming his reserves at an alarming rate. "How long?" Voss asked bluntly. "At current consumption, approximately 19 hours before I'm forced into emergency stasis. After that, 6 hours before critical system failure." Optimus Prime's voice was quieter than usual, each word carefully rationed. "If we don't find the Ark soon, you'll need to leave me behind. I won't risk Imperial lives on a corpse retrieval mission." "The Storm Wardens don't leave warriors behind," Voss said. "Even Xenos warriors who turn into trucks." Despite everything, Optimus managed something like a laugh. "You have a strange sense of honor, Brother Tech Marine. We're Space Marines. Strange is our baseline." The ship shuddered as it entered the nebula proper. Outside, visible through the small viewports, the death of angels revealed itself in full, a kaleidoscope of dying stars and shattered planets, all wrapped in clouds of exotic particles that glowed with sickly colors. Sensor readings went haywire immediately, gravitational anomalies tugging at the ship from 6 directions simultaneously. "All hands. Brace for turbulence," Captain Severus announced. "And pray to the Emperor that we don't hit a gravity well that turns us inside out." The search began. The righteous conviction moved through the nebula like a blind man groping in darkness, sensors straining to detect anything that matched the dimensional energy signature they were hunting. Hours passed. Then more hours. The crew grew tense, then exhausted, then tense again. Optimus Prime's power reserves dropped to 14%, then 12%, then "Contact!" The sensor operator's shout brought everyone to attention. "Massive object bearing 347, range approximately 50,000 kilometers. It's thrown. It's big. Bigger than a battleship. And it's definitely not Imperial construction." "Visual," Crane commanded. The main viewport shifted, magnifying and enhancing. And there, floating in the poisonous light of the nebula, was something that made even the Space Marines pause. The Ark. It was enormous, easily 3 kilometers long, shaped like an elongated teardrop with sleek lines that spoke of technology beyond Imperial understanding. Its hull was scorched and damaged, clearly having endured a catastrophic transition through dimensions, but it was intact, functional, and according to sensors, still generating power. "That's my ship," Optimus Prime's voice carried undisguised relief. "That's the Ark. I can see her." "She's beautiful," Voss breathed, his tech priest training warring with his Astartes indoctrination. "And completely heretical, but beautiful." "Scan for life signs," Crane ordered. "I want to know if Prime's people came through with the ship." The sensor operator worked frantically. "Negative on organic life signs, but I'm detecting multiple energy signatures consistent with the one Prime generates. At least 24. They're low power, possibly in stasis mode." "My crew," Optimus said. "They survived the transition. They're in emergency hibernation, conserving energon until rescue arrives." "Well, rescue is here," Crane said. "Captain, bring us alongside. Prepare boarding protocols." "Inquisitor," Severus said carefully. "I'm also detecting other signatures. 7 vessels, Ork configuration, closing on the Ark from the far side. They're running silent, but our sensors caught their exhaust plumes. They know it's here. They're planning to loot it." Of course there were Orks, because nothing in this galaxy could ever be simple. "Time until they reach the Ark?" Crane asked. "Approximately 30 minutes. Crane's jaw tightened. "Then we have 30 minutes to board that vessel, secure it, and prepare to defend it against greenskins who definitely won't appreciate us stealing their prize." He turned to Codicier Hadrian. "Brother Codicier, your thoughts?" "We hold them at the Ark," Hadrian said immediately. "Use the ship itself as a defensive position. Boarding actions favor the defender, and we'll have Prime's people as reinforcements once he can wake them." "Assuming we can wake them," Voss pointed out. "Assuming Prime has enough power left to interface with his ship's systems and bring them online." All eyes turned to Optimus Prime. His optics were dim, his power reserves in critical range. He looked at the Ark, his home, his salvation, and calculated the odds. "I have enough power for one major action," he said quietly. "I can interface with the Ark's systems and wake my crew, but afterward I'll be completely depleted. I'll need immediate energon infusion or I'll shut down permanently." "How immediate?" Crane demanded. "Minutes. Once I'm inside the Ark and connected to her systems, I'll need to be physically transported to the energon reserves before complete system failure. Then we move fast. Voss, Hadrian, select a boarding team. Reckon, your people establish a defensive perimeter inside the Ark's access points. Prime, you get us in, wake your crew, and then we keep you alive long enough to reach your fuel. Clear?" "Clear," Optimus said. Then quieter. "Thank you for this. For everything. Your people have shown me more compassion than I had any right to expect." "Save the thanks for after we survive," Crane replied. "Severus, bring us in. All hands, prepare for boarding action. And someone tell Commissar Dravik to stop muttering about heresy and get his bolt pistol ready. We're about to fight orcs inside a thinking machine's starship. If that's not the perfect metaphor for life in the Imperium, I don't know what is." The righteous conviction maneuvered alongside the Ark with delicate precision, matching velocities in the swirling chaos of the nebula. Magnetic docking clamps extended, bit into the ancient vessel's hull, and locked tight. Optimus Prime moved forward on reserves that were now at 9% and dropping. His spark flickered like a dying flame. But he moved anyway, because his people were on that ship. His crew. His responsibility. The airlock cycled, the boarding ramp extended, and Optimus Prime stepped aboard the Ark for the first time in days that felt like years. "Ark," he spoke into the silence, his voice interfacing directly with the ship's computer systems. "This is Optimus Prime. Authorization code Alpha Omega 1. Emergency revival protocols. Wake everyone. We have company coming, and we're going to need every hand." The Ark's systems hummed to life around him. Lights flickered on. Machinery that had been dormant since the dimensional crossing began to stir. And deep in the ship's hibernation chambers, 24 Autobot warriors began the slow process of waking from their emergency slumber. "They're coming online," Optimus reported. "It'll take approximately 10 minutes for full revival. After that, you'll have Autobot support." "And you?" Voss asked, watching Optimus's power levels drop to 7%. "I'll last long enough. I have to." Outside, detected by the Ark's newly awakened sensors, 7 Ork ships were accelerating toward them. Each one was a ramshackle nightmare of welded metal and oversized guns. Each one carried enough Orks to overwhelm the Righteous Convictions crew 10 times over. "Here they come!" The VoxNet crackled with Ork transmissions, their savage joy audible even through the static. "Big shiny ship, gonna loot it! Gonna crump whoever's inside! Wag!" "Defensive positions," Hadrian commanded, his stormbolter raised. "Emperor protects, brothers, and if Prime's people are half as capable as he is, the Greenskins are about to have a very bad day." The battle for the Ark was about to begin. And in the cargo hold, at 3% power and dropping, Optimus Prime prepared to make one final sacrifice, waking his crew at the cost of his own life, if necessary. Because that's what Primes did. They protected. They sacrificed. They led from the front, no matter the cost. Even in the grim darkness of the far future, some principles remained unchanged. The Orks hit the Ark with the subtlety of a meteor strike. Their assault boats, if those collections of welded scrap and rocket engines could be called boats, slammed into the hull at various docking ports. Cutting torches flared to life, carving through armor plating with the kind of reckless enthusiasm that only greenskins could muster. "Breach! Decks 4 and 7! Brother Voss's voice cut through the Voxnet. "Enemy forces pouring through! Emperor's throne! There's dozens of them!" The first Orks to board found themselves in corridors that were simultaneously too large and too alien. Cybertronian architecture didn't follow human proportions. Hallways were 18 meters tall, doorways were massive, and everything was covered in circuitry and technology that made the greenskins' eyes light up with avarice. "Look at all dis gubbins!" One particularly large Ork, a knob by his size and the crude power claw on his arm, bellowed with joy. "Gonna take everything! Gonna make the bestest WAG machines!" His enthusiasm lasted exactly 5 seconds before a blue plasma bolt vaporized his head. The Autobot who'd fired stepped out from a side corridor, his frame painted red and white with yellow accents, standing roughly 15 meters tall and holding a photon rifle that hummed with barely contained power. His designation was Ironhide, weapons specialist, and his vocal processor carried a deep growl that would have made a space marine sound friendly by comparison. "Ain't nobody looting this ship while I'm still functional," Ironhide said. Then he opened fire in earnest. The hallway became a killing field. Photon rounds, superheated plasma magnetically accelerated to hypersonic velocity, tore through Ork bodies like tissue paper. Ironhide advanced with methodical precision, each shot perfectly placed, never wasting ammunition. Behind him, 2 more Autobots emerged from the revival chambers. Bumblebee, a smaller yellow scout with integrated stinger weapons, and Jazz, a sleek silver warrior who moved with liquid grace. "Yo, Ironhide!" Jazz's voice carried an almost musical quality despite the violence. "Prime said we got humans on board? Fighting with us?" "Affirmative," came Optimus's strained voice over their internal comm network. "Imperial forces, they're not our enemy. Coordinate with them. Defend the ship." "Humans working with us? Man, what kind of reality did we drop into?" Jazz muttered. Then louder. "B, take the port corridors. Ironhide, you got starboard. I'll sweep central and link up with these human warriors." The coordination was immediate, instinctive. 4 million years of war had taught the Autobots to adapt to any situation, any ally, any battlefield. The fact that their allies this time were power-armored super soldiers and psychotic commissars was just another day in their endless conflict. Brother Caudissier Hadrian and his Storm Wardens encountered Jazz at Junction 7 Alpha. The Space Marine Stormbolter was already tracking before he recognized the massive mechanical warrior wasn't hostile. "Hold fire!" Hadrian commanded. "Autobot ally!" Jazz skidded to a halt, his optics widening as he took in the Space Marines. Humans in armor, taller and broader than any human should be, carrying weapons that actually looked threatening even to Cybertronian standards. "Whoa, you humans are built different here, huh?" Jazz said. "All right, we got Orks coming through Deck 7, probably 50 or more. I'll flank left, you take right, we catch 'em in crossfire." Hadrian blinked. He'd expected many things from his first encounter with thinking machines. Tactical coordination wasn't one of them. "Agreed. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." The combined assault was devastating. Space Marine bolters spoke with the Emperor's fury, mass reactive rounds detonating inside Ork bodies. Jazz's photon pistols added their own firepower, and when an Ork knob tried to charge through the killing field, Hadrian simply drew his force sword and removed its head with a single stroke. "Okay, that was pretty slick," Jazz admitted, watching the headless body topple. "What are you exactly? Enhanced humans? Space Marines, angels of death, the Emperor's finest warriors." Hadrian was moving already, reloading on the move. "And you are remarkably capable for a machine." Been doing this a long time, big man. A real long time. They kept moving, kept fighting. The Orks were numerous but disorganized, and the defenders had every advantage: knowledge of the terrain, superior coordination, and firepower that made the Greenskins' crude weapons look like children's toys. In the ship's command center, Optimus Prime knelt before an interface console, his hands, what remained of his power channeling through them, connected directly to the Ark's core systems. Around him, Commander Reckon's guardsmen had established a defensive perimeter, laser guns trained on every entrance. "Power at 2%, Optimus reported. "The Ark's energon reserves are 3 decks down, Section 12 Alpha. I've transmitted the coordinates to your tactical displays. Once I complete crew revival, I'll need immediate transport there or I'll shut down." "Understood," Reckon said. He glanced at his men, good soldiers all of them, but they looked deeply uncomfortable defending a thinking machine in the heart of a Xenos vessel. "You heard the machine. Prepare for emergency evacuation protocols." "Commander," Commissar Dravik spoke up, and for once his voice carried something other than rigid doctrine. "Recommendation. We send a runner ahead to the energon reserves now. Clear the path. That way when Prime finishes his task, we can move him immediately." Reckon stared at the Commissar. "That's actually sensible and humane. Are you feeling all right, Commissar?" "Don't mistake pragmatism for softness, Commander. I simply don't want to have dragged ourselves across 47 light years only to watch our only strategic asset shut down from poor logistics." Dravik's hand rested on his bolt pistol. "Though I still think this is all deeply heretical." "Noted and logged, Commissar." The last Autobot came online. Ratchet, the chief medical officer, his frame white and red with orange accents. His optics focused immediately on Optimus Prime's critical power levels. "Prime, your reserves are nearly depleted. What were you thinking, burning yourself down to wake us?" Ratchet's voice carried the exasperated tone of a medic who'd spent millennia keeping his commander alive, despite said commander's best efforts to get himself killed. "I was thinking we had incoming Orks and needed all hands," Optimus replied, his voice barely above a whisper now. "Status of crew? All present and functional. 24 Autobots, various levels of damage from the dimensional crossing, but combat ready." Ratchet was already scanning Optimus with medical equipment that made Reckon's eyes hurt to look at. "But you won't be conscious to command them if we don't get you to Energon in the next 3 minutes." "Then, 3 minutes it is." Optimus Prime's optics dimmed to almost nothing. His spark was a bare flicker, but his hands remained connected to the Ark's systems, and his voice, somehow, impossibly, continued to transmit orders. "All Autobot personnel, this is Optimus Prime. We've arrived in an alternate reality. The Imperium of Man is not our enemy. Coordinate with Imperial forces. Defend the Ark. Eliminate the Ork threat. And somebody, get me to Energon before I embarrass myself by shutting down in front of humans." "We got you, boss," Ironhide's voice came through. "Clearing a path to Section 12 Alpha now. B, Jazz on me. Ratchet, you got transport?" "I'll carry him if I have to," Ratchet replied. The battle raged across the Ark's massive halls. Orks were everywhere, shooting, looting, fighting with the gleeful abandon of a species that lived for violence. But they were being pushed back, step by bloody step, by a combined force that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Space Marines fighting alongside Autobots, Imperial Guard coordinating with sentient machines, Commissars and tech priests and Xenos warriors all working toward the same goal, survival. In any other circumstance, in any other galaxy, it would have been impossible. But this was the 41st millennium, where survival meant adapting or dying, and the defenders of the Ark had chosen to adapt. Optimus Prime's systems hit 1%, then 0.5. His consciousness was fading, his spark guttering like a candle in a hurricane. The last thing he registered before shutdown was Ratchet's hands lifting him, carrying him, and the determined voices of humans and Autobots alike forming a protective corridor. "Move, move, move! Clear the way! Got Orks at the next junction, suppressing fire! Somebody get that door open! Prime's running out of time!" And then, as his final system alarms screamed their warnings and his spark prepared to extinguish itself, Optimus Prime felt it. Energon. Raw, pure, beautiful energon flooding into his systems from the Ark's reserves. His crew had gotten him there. Humans and Autobots working together had saved his life. His spark flared bright, drinking in the fuel it had been denied for days. Power returned to critical systems. His optics brightened, and when he spoke, his voice was strong again. "Status report. You just survived complete system shutdown by approximately 4.3 seconds, Ratchet said dryly. "And you're welcome, by the way." "Thank you, old friend." Optimus Prime stood, his frame already repairing damage, his systems running diagnostics and coming back green across the board. "Now, let's show these Orks what happens when they attack an Autobot vessel." He strode toward the sounds of battle, and 24 Autobots fell in behind him. So did the Storm Wardens, the Imperial Guard, and one very conflicted commissar who was starting to suspect that maybe, just maybe, not all thinking machines were abominations. The final offensive was about to begin, and the Orks, who'd thought they were looting an easy target, were about to learn a hard lesson about picking fights with primes. The Orks' mistake was assuming the fighting would stay inside the Ark. They'd poured their forces into the ship's corridors, where their numbers meant little against coordinated defenders in choke points. What they hadn't anticipated was the defenders coming to them. Optimus Prime led the counterattack personally, his energon blade blazing as he carved through the Ark's main airlock and stepped directly onto the hull. Behind him, Autobots followed, Ironhide, Jazz, Bumblebee, and 20 others, all of them weapons hot and spoiling for a fight after days in stasis. The Orks' assault boats were still clamped to the hull like parasites. Inside the Ark, that made them defensible positions. Outside, in the vacuum of space with no cover and nowhere to retreat, they became coffins. "Target the boarding craft," Optimus commanded, his voice transmitting across both Autobot and Imperial frequencies. "Sever their escape routes. No survivors." It was harsh. It was absolute. And it was exactly what this situation demanded. The Autobots opened fire. Ion blasters, photon cannons, plasma rifles, all of them designed to function in vacuum, all of them devastatingly effective against crude Ork construction. The first assault boat exploded in a gout of flame and debris that dissipated instantly in the airless void. The second tried to detach and flee. Ironhide shot out its engines and it tumbled away, spinning into the nebula's gravitational anomalies. Inside the Ark, the Orks suddenly realized their reinforcements weren't coming. The ones already aboard found themselves trapped between Autobot heavy weapons ahead and Space Marine bolters behind. The fighting became desperate, vicious, but ultimately one-sided. Commander Reckon watched through a viewport as an Ork Nob, easily the size of an Ogryn, charged directly at Optimus Prime with a power claw raised high. The Prime didn't even slow down. He caught the descending claw on his energon blade, twisted with inhuman strength, and tore the weapon clean off. Then he drove his fist through the Ork's chest and hurled the body off the hull into space. "That," Reckon said to Commissar Dravik, "is the most heretical thing I've ever cheered for." Dravik said nothing, but his bolt pistol remained holstered. That was answer enough. The battle lasted 18 minutes from Optimus Prime's revival to the last Ork death. 7 assault boats destroyed, approximately 300 greenskins killed. Imperial casualties, 12 wounded, none fatal. Autobot casualties, 0. though Bumblebee had taken damage to his vocal processor that left him communicating through electronic beeps. The Ork fleet, seeing their boarding parties annihilated, made the intelligent decision to flee before the massive ship they'd tried to loot decided to return fire. The Ark's weapons were still offline, but the Orks didn't know that, and they weren't willing to test their luck against a vessel that had just killed their entire invasion force. In the aftermath, Inquisitor Crane stood in what Optimus Prime called the command deck, a vast chamber filled with displays showing star charts that made no sense because they were from another reality entirely. Around him, Autobots worked on repairs, their mechanical forms moving with purpose and efficiency that made even Mechanicus tech priests look clumsy. "So," Crane said to Optimus Prime, who stood at the center of the chamber like a massive metal monument, "you have your ship, you have your crew, you have fuel, which means you no longer need Imperial assistance. The question becomes, what happens now?" Optimus Prime turned his optics to the Inquisitor. "That depends on whether you're asking what I want to happen, or what you think should happen." "Both. What I want is to find a way home, to repair our dimensional bridge, return to Cybertron, and resume my war against the Decepticons. That's been my purpose for 4 million years. That's what I'm built for." Optimus paused. "But what should happen? That's more complicated. Because I've seen your galaxy now. I've seen the Orks, the corruption, the endless war. I've seen humans fighting with courage against impossible odds. And I've seen how desperately you need help." "The Imperium doesn't need help from Xenos technology," Dravik interjected, though his voice carried less conviction than usual. "No," Optimus agreed. "You don't need our technology. Your people would probably destroy themselves trying to use it anyway, no offense intended. But you might benefit from our help, our warriors, our experience. We've been fighting our own endless war for longer than your Imperium has existed. We know something about survival." Crane studied the massive Autobot leader. "You're proposing an alliance between the Imperium of Man and the Autobots. I'm proposing that while we work on repairing our dimensional bridge, a process that could take months or years, we might be mutually beneficial to each other. You get access to Autobot combat capabilities. We get access to your resources and knowledge of this reality. Everyone wins." "The Mechanicus will never allow it," Magos Archon 12 said. But his mechadendrites were writhing with barely suppressed excitement. "Or rather, Mars will never officially allow it. But there are forges in the outer sectors that are more flexible in their interpretation of doctrine." "And the Space Marines?" Crane looked at Codicier Hadrian. The Storm Warden had removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face that had seen centuries of war. "The Autobots fight with honor. They protect the weak. They show mercy where appropriate and ruthlessness when necessary. They are, in many ways, more honorable than some human institutions I could name." He paused. "My chapter will not oppose this alliance. We may even support it, quietly." "This is insane," Dravik said. "We're discussing permanent military coordination with abominable intelligence. The Inquisition will do what I tell it to do within my jurisdiction," Crane interrupted coldly. "And I'm telling it that Optimus Prime and his Autobots are not men of iron. They are not the ancient enemy. They are refugees from another reality who have proven themselves in battle and earned the right to exist. Anyone who disagrees can file their complaints directly with my office, where they will be reviewed and subsequently ignored." "You're playing with fire, Inquisitor," Dravik warned. "I've been playing with fire since I joined the Ordo Xenos, Commissar. It's what I do." Crane turned back to Optimus Prime. "Here's my proposal. You and your crew remain in this sector. You assist with local defense. Emperor knows the Eastern Fringe needs all the help it can get. You work on repairing your bridge in your spare time, and if you find a way home, you're free to leave. No strings attached. And if we can't find a way home, Optimus asked. Then you've found a new one here. Not perfect, not anything like what you're used to, but a place where you can keep fighting for what you believe in. For freedom, for justice, for, what did you call it? The right of all sentient beings. Optimus Prime was silent for a long moment. His spark pulsed steadily now, strong and bright, fueled by energon and sustained by purpose. He looked at his crew, Autobots who'd followed him across dimensions, who trusted his judgment even when it led them into impossible situations. Then he looked at the humans, flawed, brutal, fanatical, but also courageous, loyal, and desperately fighting to survive in a galaxy that wanted them dead. All right, Optimus Prime said finally. We have an accord. The Autobots will fight alongside the Imperium, not as servants, not as tools, but as allies, for as long as we remain in your reality. He extended his hand, massive, mechanical, alien, toward Inquisitor Crane. Crane looked at that hand for a long moment. Taking it meant accepting everything it represented. It meant acknowledging that the rules they'd lived by for 10,000 years might need revision. It meant admitting that thinking machines could be something other than monsters. It meant change. And change was terrifying. But survival meant adaptation. And the Imperium, for all its flaws, had survived 10,000 years by adapting when necessary. Crane gripped Optimus Prime's finger, the only part of the Autobot's hand small enough to grasp, and shook. Then we're allies, Crane said. Emperor, help us all. And the Allspark guide us, Optimus replied. Outside the Ark, the Death of Angels Nebula continued its slow, poisonous rotation. The Orks were regrouping somewhere in the darkness, preparing new attacks. Chaos cultists plotted in shadowed temples. Tyrannid hive fleets drifted between the stars, and the endless war of the 41st millennium ground forward with its usual brutal momentum. But in that moment, on that ship, two species that should have been enemies became something else. Not friends. That would take time, possibly centuries. But allies. Partners in survival. And in the grim darkness of the far future, where there was only war, even small victories mattered. Even small hopes were worth fighting for, especially when they came with 18 meters of walking, talking, transforming proof that the universe was bigger and stranger than anyone had imagined. 3 months later, reports began filtering through Imperial command networks, reports that were quickly classified, redacted, or dismissed as battlefield hallucinations. Stories of massive mechanical warriors fighting alongside the Astra Militarum on border worlds. Accounts of vehicles that transformed mid-battle into towering soldiers who spoke of freedom and choice. Whispers of a blue and red giant who'd held a trench line single-handedly against a chaos incursion, then vanished before reinforcements arrived. The Mechanicus denied everything. The Inquisition issued no comment. And the Space Marines who'd witnessed the truth kept their own counsel, bound by honor and the knowledge that some secrets were better kept than revealed. Optimus Prime and his Autobots had found their place in the 41st millennium, not as conquerors or corrupted technology, but as warriors fighting for principles that this brutal galaxy had long forgotten. They defended Forge worlds from Xenos raids. They evacuated civilians from war zones that the Imperial Guard had written off as lost. They stood between the weak and the predators, because that's what they'd always done, across 4 million years and now across realities. The dimensional bridge remained unfixed. Cybertronian technology and Imperial reality continued to clash in fundamental ways that made repair work agonizingly slow. It might take decades to complete. It might never be completed at all. But Optimus Prime had learned something in his time among humans. Home wasn't just a place. It was a purpose. And as long as there were beings who needed protection, as long as freedom was threatened, as long as darkness sought to extinguish light, there was work to be done. On Vulcanus Prime, in a cleared section of Manufactorum District 7, a memorial stood. It bore no Imperial iconography, no aquilus or skulls. Just a simple inscription in both Gothic and Cybertronian script. Here, machine and man stood together. Here, ancient fears were set aside for common cause. Here, we proved that even in darkness, honor can bridge any divide. The Emperor protects, and so do we all. Severine the Psyker had survived her ordeal, though she remained weak. She'd been the first to visit the memorial, touching the metal with withered fingers and smiling her terrible smile. "He burns bright," she'd whispered to no one. "Even in this dark galaxy, he burns so bright." Commander Reckon had been promoted, though he still didn't quite believe the reports he filed about the battle. Commissar Dravik continued to insist the entire situation was heretical, but he'd stopped calling for Optimus Prime's execution. Progress came in small steps, and somewhere in the Death of Angels Nebula, aboard a ship that shouldn't exist in this reality, Optimus Prime stood on his command deck and studied star charts of a galaxy he was learning to understand. It wasn't Cybertron. It wasn't the reality he'd known for 4 million years. But it was where he was needed. "Till all are one," he said quietly, an old Cybertronian prayer, spoken to stars that had never heard it before. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But war has many forms. And sometimes, just sometimes, warriors from impossible places arrive to remind the galaxy what it truly means to fight for something bigger than survival, to fight for freedom, for hope, for the right of all sentient beings to live without fear. Optimus Prime had entered Warhammer 40,000, and the 41st millennium would never be quite the same again. The Emperor protects those who fight for what is right, and on worlds besieged by darkness, when hope seems lost and the enemy closes in, defenders sometimes report seeing a figure on the horizon, massive, metal, unstoppable. A warrior who transforms from truck to soldier, who speaks of freedom in a galaxy that's forgotten the word, who fights not because doctrine demands it, but because it's the right thing to do. They call him the Metal Prime, the Wandering Protector, the machine who chose. And when the battle is won and the civilians are safe, he's gone, rolled out to the next war zone, the next desperate stand, the next impossible fight. Because that's what primes do. They lead. They protect. They transform darkness into light, one battle at a time, till all are one. Even in the grim darkness of the far future. Especially in the grim darkness of the far future. The Emperor protects. More stories await. If you enjoyed this tale of the Metal Prime walking among the stars of the 41st millennium, hit that subscribe button. Because in a galaxy of endless war, even legends need allies. The Emperor protects those who support the channel. And there are more stories from the Dark Millennium waiting to be told. What other impossible encounters might the grim darkness hold? What other heroes from distant realities might find themselves tested in mankind's darkest hour? Stay tuned to find out. And remember, freedom is the right of all sentient beings, even in a galaxy that's forgotten what freedom means.